Chapter 1224. However, all of a sudden, the music became much quieter. The people on the other side all looked to the side. Baizhan was back. He had already taken off the mask on his face, revealing his well-defined face. His fine black hair hid his eyelashes, and he was as noble and cold as ever. The clothes he wore when he went out had already been changed. The woolen tassel jacket that reached his legs made him look even more handsome and tall. His rice clothes were light, and his face was fine. As soon as he appeared, he suppressed all his peers at the banquet. Old Master Bai looked satisfied, and the smile on his face became even wider. At this time, the people attending the banquet also walked up to Baizhan. They greeted him and laughed. I really didn't expect Baizhan to be so old in the blink of an eye. It's worth coming back this time. This kid has to go to my place. Why should he go to your place? He should go to my place. The Flying Tiger Brigade is suitable for our Baizhan. The people standing in that row were all wearing military uniforms. Baizhan had seen them before. Even if he was not feeling well, his face did not show anything. He smiled faintly and greeted, Uncle Li, Uncle Liu. Baizhan, let me tell you. You have to go to our place. To be honest, don't go to your uncle's place, okay? He trains people to take a layer off them. Li Boyan was talking about Baizhan's uncle, the famous demon third young master Tang. Baizhan smiled. Uncle Li, how could you forget again? Uncle has already retired from the army. Li Boyan was stunned and shook his head. I can only blame him for giving me too much psychological trauma when he was around. It was really not a good feeling to be scolded by someone younger than him as a rookie, and the other party's military rank was higher than his. The most important thing was that that person did not look like a soldier at all. Instead, he looked like a warlord young master from the Republic of China era. However, speaking of which, Baizhan did not look like he could enter the army, but in fact, that was not the case. Baizhan coughed lightly. Uncle Li, you guys chat first. I'll go up first. He was going to look for Ajiu. From the moment he came in until now, he had not seen the child's shadow, so Baizhan could not help but be anxious. The strange thing was that Ajiu was not even on the second floor. He searched the bedroom and kitchen, but he still could not find her. The two girls behind Jiyu Ru kept looking at Baizhan. That's strange. What is Colonel Bai looking for? Shouldn't he cut the cake first? Jiyu Ru narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. Instead, she smiled. At this time, the music also changed and gradually became more passionate. Li Hailu and Xiao Lin also saw that something had happened to Baizhan. Both of them were wearing suits today and were very handsome. Xiao Lin was still doing foreign policy with his mother. When he saw that Baizhan had no intention of cutting the cake, he looked at Li Hailu and walked over. What's wrong? Xiao Lin lowered his voice. Baizhan suppressed the pain in his throat and said in a hoarse voice, Ajiu isn't back yet. Not back yet. Li Hailu frowned. Today is such an important day. It's impossible that she doesn't know. Did she go to the courtyard to play? Baizhan shook his head. No, I went upstairs to take a look. Her school bag is not in the bedroom. What's going on? Li Hailu raised his head and looked at the clock hanging in the living room. Could it be that she's still in school? How about this, you cut the cake first. Xiao Lin and I will go and pick Ajiu up. Don't worry, we'll definitely let her spend this birthday with you alone. Baizhan coughed again. She's not in school either. Before I came back, I went to the teaching building. The homeroom teacher said that she had already applied for leave for today. Then where did she go? Li Hailu was also surprised. Jiyu Ru listened at the side and walked over with a wine glass. She should have gone to play with Helian Qingchen. Helian Qingchen? Li Hailu's eyes suddenly widened. That transfer student. When we came, we saw Ajiu with him. We even asked Ajiu if she wanted to come back with us, but she didn't agree. Yes, yes. The two girls behind Jiyu Ru also spoke. Those two people were quite intimate with a dog. They should still be together now. Hearing this, Xiao Lin frowned. He looked at Baizhan with a hint of worry in his eyes. Baizhan valued this birthday very much. The reason why he valued it was because he had already planned to spend the rest of the time alone with Adju except for the social interaction part. However, because Adju was with someone else, she missed the opening of the banquet. Xiao Lin's heart tightened. He was really afraid that Bai Zhen would do something on this day. Li Hailu also knew the details and immediately said, "Bai Zhen, do what you have to do. Adju definitely won't forget such an important day. Maybe she's rushing over here." Hailu is right. Ji Ru gently echoed from the side. Her snow-white long dress swayed. No matter how young Adju is, she knows what's more important. It's almost time to cut the cake. If we don't start now, I'm afraid she'll be anxious later. Bai Zhen did not say anything. He stood there with a cold and indifferent expression. His drooping hair covered his eyes. Perhaps it was because he was sick, but at that moment, he actually made people feel that his tall and straight jade-like back was somewhat lonely. When the two girls beside Ji Ru saw this, they only felt that this Adju was really insensible. She was still having fun outside on her brother's birthday, but she did not know how to come back earlier. However, after what happened last time, they no longer dared to talk too much in front of Bai Zhen. They could only stand aside obediently and be wallflowers. Vice Commander Zhong walked over from inside and whispered into Bai Zhen's ear, "Young master, the chief is asking when to cut the cake." Bai Zhen still did not say anything. He stood there tall and slender. His slender fingers were clenched one by one as if he was enduring something. Even the expression on his face had become a little cold. When Ji Ru saw this scene, the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. She had long said that the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old was more than 5 years. Two people with different thoughts were destined to not be together. Adju's youth, ignorance had finally begun to make Bai Zhen feel uncomfortable. What did she mean by liking or not liking? It was just a habit that she had developed since she was young. Ji Ru had also heard from Auntie Wang and the others that when Adju first came to the Bai family, Bai Zhen was not very welcoming. It just so happened that the child came at the right time. At that time, Bai Zhen was alone at home, so it was very easy for him to develop feelings for others. It was not impossible for him to mistake that feeling for liking someone. Now, after this incident, Bai Zhen would probably be completely disappointed in that child. Chapter 1225. When Ji Ru thought of this, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. She suppressed the joy in her heart and was about to gently persuade him. Bai Zhen's deep voice sounded, "Tell grandfather to cut the cake after 9 o'clock. Let the people who come eat something and dance first." This. Vice Commander Zhong hesitated. Was it okay to suddenly change the banquet process? Bai Zhen raised his head, his eyes indifferent. "Adju is not back yet. Before she comes back, I will not cut this cake. Do as I say." Yes. Ever since that incident, young master had never been so willful again. Fortunately, he had made sufficient preparations in advance. There was only the opening of the banquet and not the specific starting point. It would only extend the duration of the entire banquet. Vice Commander Zhong recalled that young master had hoped that the banquet would end earlier. Looking at the current situation, he could not help but worry that his body would not be able to take it. Ji Ru had never thought that Bai Zhen would actually make so many changes for such a child. Could it be that he had not heard clearly that Adju was with someone else now? After hearing Bai Zhen's words, Ji Ru's heart churned again and again. Even if we don't have to cut the cake, we still have to go in first. Standing here, there's no way to greet the guests. Ji Ru tried her best to smile generously. Moreover, when Adju comes later, someone will definitely tell us. Li Hailu also wanted Bai Zhen to go in. The main reason was that although there was a bonfire in the courtyard in the middle of winter, it was still very cold. Bai Zhen was already sick. If he continued to blow in the wind outside, he would definitely have a fever. Helpless, Bai Zhen did not seem to have any intention of entering the house. "When the cake is cut, I will appear. All of you can go in." This. Li Hailu stood at the side and was really anxious. Xiao Lin glanced at him and lowered his voice. "We have to find Adju. Otherwise, this birthday party will never start." "That's easy for you to say. Where are we going to find her? Li Hailu gritted his teeth. That Helian Qingchen is strange. She is from our school. Even your mother doesn't know her exact address. There is nothing in the file. Aju's phone can't be reached either. We simply have no clue. Xiao Lin glanced at Baizhan again. Even so, we still have to look for him. At the very least, we have to try. Otherwise, no one knows how long Baizhan will stand outside. After hearing Deputy Zhong's reply, Old Master Bai frowned. However, in the depths of his heart, he also hoped that Aju would accompany his grandson on this birthday. All these years, although others did not know, Old Master Bai knew very well that his grandson did not treat Aju like an ordinary brother treating his younger sister. He treated her as his future daughter-in-law. In the past, he had reminded Baizhan not to always subtly want to monopolize a person. The consequences would definitely not be good. At that time, what did his grandson say? Either you don't start at all, or you spend your whole life. Old Master Bai shook his head. At that time, how old was Baizhan? He had already mentioned his entire life. This child had always had a plan for his life. He didn't need to worry about anything. Only feelings. People who had lost their parents tended to treat relationships differently. Sometimes, he was really worried that Baizhan was afraid of losing because he had too many plans. That was why he only did not say anything and really missed out on what he wanted. Old Master Bai's eyes darkened. He said to Deputy Zhong, "Just do as young master said. Push back the time of the cake cutting and let people eat meat and drink first. Then, arrange for a few people to wait outside the courtyard. As soon as Aju appears, immediately bring her over. Old Chief, don't worry. Young master has already sent people out." Deputy Zhong glanced outside the door. "As long as Miss comes back, we can ensure that she enters the venue." Old Master Bai nodded and asked again, "Where's Baizhan?" "Young master is still waiting outside." After Old Master Bai heard this, he let out a long sigh. "Got it. Give him a coat." "Yes." After entering the 12th lunar month, the capital would be especially cold at night. In the north, the most common thing was haze, a vast expanse of white. It also meant that the sky was completely dark. However, this did not affect the liveliness and luxury of the Bai family's mansion. There were many birthday parties like this in the upper-class society. As long as the excuse was perfect, even if the main character was not around, people could still talk and laugh. Moreover, Baizhan did not leave. People came and went, and they could even toast a glass of wine. This was something that these guests did not notice. From the beginning to the end, it seemed that Baizhan had never entered the house. He stood in front of the Bai family's door, standing straight in the middle of the white fog. For some reason, even though it was bustling with noise and excitement, it made people feel that he was actually not happy. On the other side, in a high-class apartment near number 1 high school, Aju held a big bowl in her hand, but she did not touch a single grain of rice. Helian Qingchen sat opposite her and smiled gently. "What's wrong? Is today's food not delicious?" "No, second brother's food is delicious." As Aju spoke, she stuffed a mouthful of rice into her mouth. She puffed up her cheeks and chewed 2 mouthfuls. Then, she became a little listless. Helian Qingchen could sense that the Buddha's aura on her body was beginning to weaken. This was a very bad sign. It seemed that he had to leave early. As expected, it was not good for his little sister to keep interacting like this. If only he could find that Buddha's head. He did not know what the situation on his mother's side was like now. Just as Helian Qingchen was thinking, Aju suddenly stood up. Her small face was very serious. "Second brother, I've thought about it for a long time, but I still feel that I should attend little brother's birthday party. Even if little brother is going to get engaged to someone else at his birthday party, I still have to go. I once promised little brother that I would accompany him on his birthday every year. Wuli Buddha said that a person must be trustworthy. I was raised by little brother, and I ate the rice of the Bai family. I can't just leave little brother alone like this. If little brother likes someone else and really feels that I'm a burden, I can just leave when I can leave. Although I also really hope that little brother is mine, I don't want to destroy other people's feelings. After all, I'm going to be the abbot of the temple in the future." Helian Chingchen's feelings that had just risen were destroyed by his little sister's last sentence. However, since it was what Aju wanted to do, as her brother, he naturally supported it. "I'll call a car to send you back." As Helian Chingchen spoke, he turned on the phone on the table, only to find that there was an unread WeChat message on the screen. It was actually from his father. It was simply unscientific. Chapter 12:26. There was a rare fluctuation in Helian Chingchen's eyes. She opened WeChat. There were only 5 words on it, which was very in line with her father's cold and arrogant personality. "The Buddha's head is in the Bai family." After seeing this message, Helian Chingchen suddenly paused. Then, she received a second message. "Get ready. The whole family is gathering." Seeing this, the corners of Helian Chingchen's mouth completely curled up. Her eyes were clear as she patted Aju's head. Even her voice was lighter than usual. "Aju, it seems that you have to return to the Bai family as soon as possible." Since the Buddha's head had already arrived at the Bai family, only Bai Zhen would give the purple jade Buddha's head to his little sister after thinking about it. They did not have to wait until the spring festival. They could reunite at any time. Since it was a WeChat message from her father, her brother must have received it as well. Helian Chingchen's guess was right. Bailey Shangxie had indeed received the same message. At that time, Bailey Shangxie was listening to his manager tell him about the movie script. There was also a stylist who was blowing his hair by the side. His eyes were shining, and his face was full of emotion. It was as if he had already become a fan of Bailey Shangxie. Compared to Helian Chingchen, Bailey Shangxie had always been cold and aloof. It was as if it was that kind of innate nobility that made him so popular that whenever he appeared, people would cover their mouths and scream. At this moment, he was sitting in front of the retro bronze mirror. His left hand was supporting his chin while his other hand was casually scrolling through Weibo. Suddenly, a WeChat message came. For a moment, Bailey Shangxie did not want to open it. He did not want to see anything that his father sent him. But when he clicked on it, the expression in his dark eyes suddenly changed. Then, he stood up from his seat. The gold medal manager immediately reacted. "Wait a minute. Young master, what are you going to do? You still have an interview later. Have you forgotten?" "I haven't forgotten." Bailey Shangxie smiled and reached out to pat his manager's shoulder. "That's why I'm going to have to trouble you again, old fan." "What do you mean by that?" "The person who is going to be interviewed is you, not." "No, wait. Stop him." The golden agent was about to go crazy. Regardless of his expensive suit, he rushed into the crowd with Bailey Shangxie. Just as he was about to grab hold of the young man, he saw Bailey Shangxie turn sideways and jump out of the window with one hand against the wall. He waved his hand with his back facing him. Such a neat and handsome movement was immediately captured by the reporters who were waiting to interview Bailey Shangxie. All of them swarmed over like a swarm of bees. Seeing this scene, even the best manager in the Ju Wei group was mentally and physically exhausted. He had to face questions from the media one after another, such as where the young master had gone, why was he in such a hurry to climb through the window, and so on. The top manager took no response as a response and calmly maintained the cool smile on his face. In fact, he also wanted to know where his artist had gone. On the other side, Aju still didn't understand why her second brother suddenly became so happy. She had originally wanted to return to the Bai family as soon as possible. Moreover, her second brother's movements were much faster. Usually, when she left, he was not like this. He would always kiss her forehead. Today, her second brother seemed to be in a hurry. She didn't know what he was going to do. Could it be that her second brother also had a girlfriend? Aju thought about it seriously and felt that it might be possible. However, Aju did not guess too much. After all, when her second brother sent her downstairs, he also said that he would be busy later and could not personally send her to the Bai family. Aju was also obedient. She held the big steamed bun that her second brother had steamed with one hand and pulled the Alaskan tightly with the other. She did not know where her second brother had called the car from. It was very big inside, and it was completely dark outside. He even dared to drive a big dog. It was just that little Allah was not so obedient after leaving Hellion Qingchen. It always stretched out its neck and wanted to jump out of the car. Aju directly hugged its big head and used force to suppress it. During this time, the driver kept looking back. Aju used her hand to rub the Alaskan's big face and said to it very seriously, "Little Allah, you can't bite people at the birthday party later, understand? Especially you can't bite little brother. Otherwise, I can only use force to educate you. I have always been a reasonable person. If you don't bite people, I won't beat you up. Do you understand?" Alaskan, who had been ravaged, was speechless. "Let go of my head first, and then you can talk to me about reason." Moreover, after such a day of fear, it really did not have the strength to bite people anymore. Right now, it only wanted to rest on the spot. Woof. However, it was impossible to bring such a big dog into the military compound. Today was Baijan's birthday, and anything dangerous would be stopped. After all, the people who could appear at the banquet were all extraordinary, and there was no room for any mistakes. Time passed even faster. The fog that pervaded the night gradually revealed a tall and straight figure under the light. It was Baijan. He had not entered yet, as if he had been waiting for something. Vice Commander Zhong walked over quickly again. His voice was very low. "Young master, it's about time. The chief asked me to ask if it's time for you to start cutting the cake. Some people have already reached the time to leave. If we continue to wait, I'm afraid that people will have a bad impression of the Bai family." This was already the third time Vice Commander Zhong had come to urge him. He was not so anxious the first 2 times, but now, the time was almost up. Winter was not as good as summer, and the banquet could be held until midnight. Winter was dark quickly, and the people who came here were people who had to deal with many things every time. Of course, they would not wait so long. Jiyu Ru and the others came out with Vice Commander Zhong. Seeing that it was about time, they also tried to persuade him, "Why don't you go in and cut the cake first? I'll wait here. If Aju is sent here, I'll immediately bring her in. It's already past 8 o'clock. It's better for someone else to wait here. If she could come, she would have come long ago. From the looks of it, she should still be playing outside. Baijan, it's better not to wait. If you continue, your body won't be able to take it." After all, Aju was no longer a child. She knew how to come back. She was probably still with Hellion Qingchen. Jiyu Ru tugged at her girlfriend, but her eyes were in agreement. "Don't talk nonsense. You guys go in. I'll wait outside with Baijan." "No need." Baijan finally opened his mouth, but it was accompanied by one cough after another. His voice was very cold and distant. "This is the Bai family's banquet. We are the ones who are waiting." Chapter 12:27. The meaning behind his words was already very obvious. In layman's terms, this group of outsiders did not have the right to interfere in the Bai family's matters. However, some girls just could not tell what was good for them. Even if they could tell, they would pretend that they did not understand in order to maintain their image. "It's okay, we'll wait with you." After the 2 girls finished speaking, they looked at Jiyu Ru with a smile. At this moment, Jiyu Cheng also walked out. Of course, when he saw this scene, he immediately frowned. Baijan had already chased them away directly enough. This was the Bai family's banquet, not anyone else's. Why were the girls around his cousin so unruly? What surprised him the most was his cousin's reaction. She actually stood there. The other 2 girls did not understand. When did his cousin become so unruly? Jiyu Cheng put one hand in his side pocket and raised his eyebrows. Vice Commander Zhong did not have time to care about anything else. He raised his hand and looked at the watch on his wrist. His face revealed an anxious expression. "Young master." Baijan did not move. He lowered his eyes and looked at the purple jade Buddha head in his palm. His fingers slowly clenched. There were still fireworks in the courtyard that he had bought to celebrate his birthday with Aju. There was a whole wheat yogurt ice cream cake in the fridge. It was no longer fresh even now. His phone kept ringing, reminding him that the ship he had booked had already passed the time. Xiao Lin watched from the side and knew what was going on. He lowered his voice and said, "No matter what, let's go cut the cake first." When Ajiu comes back, we can make up for the rest. Baizhan glanced at him and said indifferently, 5 minutes. If she doesn't come back in 5 minutes, I'll go in again. Xiao Lin knew that this was Baizhan's limit. He looked at Vice Commander Zhong and gestured for him to go in and make preparations first. He called 2 more people over and asked them to go out and inquire again. Little did he know that in order to bring Alaska into the courtyard, Ajiu had directly avoided all eyes and ears. She was familiar with the layout of the courtyard and took small forks in the road. However, for safety, she still did not bring Alaska into the Bai family. Instead, she tied it not far from the Bai family and even placed a small wooden board across Alaska's mouth. This way, you won't be able to bite people. When I see little brother, I'll bring him to see you. Ajiu clapped her hands. There was still a fallen leaf on her head, and her small face was not so clean. But even so, she was still exquisite and beautiful, especially her big eyes that were bright. The Alaskan Malamute lay on the ground with its 2 claws. It was a very sad thing to meet a master whose strength was off the charts. Thinking of how mighty and domineering it was before, anyone who saw it would be scared witless. Now that it had walked so far, even its teeth were blocked. Ajiu was still very good to the big dog. She opened a bottle of water for it and let it lick it when it was thirsty. Then, she gave half of her steamed buns to it. She held the other half of the big steamed buns in her mouth and walked towards the Bai family with her schoolbag on her back. Only then did Ajiu realize that the 2 uncles standing outside had changed. That person saw Ajiu walking over and lowered his eyes to look at her. Miss, please show me the Bai family's invitation. Invitation card? Ajiu frowned. I don't have an invitation. Where are Uncle Zhong and the others? Why aren't they outside? I'm sorry, miss. If you don't show us the invitation card, we won't let you in. Please understand, that person continued. Ajiu rubbed her head and was about to find a new place to climb the wall to enter. She saw the people sent by Baizhan walking over from 4 directions at the same time. They even had Bluetooth headphones in their ears. When they saw her, even their eyes lit up. Miss, you're finally back. Quick, follow us in. Young master is still waiting for you. Hearing this, the 2 people standing guard looked at each other. It was strange. The eldest miss had never told them that there was another miss in the Bai family. However, the few special forces soldiers glanced at the people standing guard. You don't even recognize Miss Ajiu? Hurry up and get out of the way. This time, the 2 people did not dare to delay any longer and immediately got out of the way. Ajiu walked in with a steamed bun in her mouth. From afar, she saw Baizhan's figure and many friends behind him. Those people seemed to be saying something to him. Baizhan, if you don't go in now, there won't be enough time. The little brother did not say anything. He only coughed heavily. Ajiu immediately ran over, afraid that he had caught a cold. When she got closer, she realized that she did not know how long he had been standing under the tree. He seemed to be a little different from usual. He was not as proud and elegant as before. His lips and eyes were a little haggard, and the bottom of his eyes was a little dark. His thick black hair seemed to be stained with night dew, and it was slightly damp. Little brother. Ajiu called out to Baizhan. Only then did Baizhan seem to have come back to his senses. He strode over and stared at her without moving. He did not look very happy either. The air was very quiet. Other than the rustling sound of the wind, there was nothing else. Vice Commander Zhong came out to urge him again. However, when he saw that Ajiu was also there, his expression clearly changed. He was really thankful. Young master, since Miss is back, you should follow me in first. You still have to prepare for the speech. Baizhan nodded and lowered his eyes. She did not know what he put on her wrist. Ajiu only felt that the thing was cold. It was very comfortable when it was pressed against her skin. It was warm and jade-like. It was probably describing this kind of touch. When she raised her head again, she only saw Baizhan's back. The little brother did not seem to want to talk to her, nor did he want to ask where she had gone. Even if the little brother did not say anything, Ajiu could feel that Baizhan did not want to speak this time. The banquet in the house had finally reached its most lively moment. In the house, The magnificently decorated hall was already filled with people. Congratulatory voices could be heard from time to time. Ji-Ru glanced at Ajiu. After everyone entered the inner residence, she held a wine glass and leaned over. Her tone was gentle. Ajiu, I was worried that you wouldn't come. I was so anxious. Fortunately, you came at the last moment. Don't blame your brother for being so cold to you just now. In order to wait for you to come, he even pushed back the time to cut the cake by a few hours. If it weren't for Grandpa Bai, this banquet would definitely have ended on bad terms. Bai Zhen was also anxious. That's why he was like this. That's right. The two girls next to Ji-Ru also walked over and advised her earnestly, Ajiu, you have to be more sensible in the future. You don't know how ugly Colonel Bai's expression was just now. Adjutant Zhong even came out to call him a few times. You're right. It's good that you just came back with us, but you just had to go and play with others. Not only did you delay things, but you even made everyone wait for you. Look at how you're dressed now. You really don't look like a child. It's not good if others see you later. After all, you're Bai Zhen's sister. Chapter 12:28. Hearing this, Ajiu lowered her eyes and looked at her own clothes. Although there were no proper decorations, they were very clean and decent. There was nothing wrong with them. Don't say any more. I heard from Grandpa Bai that Ajiu is usually very sensible and saves money. After all, she knows that her surname is not Bai, so it's good to do this. As soon as Ji-Ru finished speaking, the two girls widened their eyes and looked at Ajiu in disbelief. There was something else in their eyes. So her surname is not Bai. No wonder. Ji-Ru smiled lightly. Even if her surname is not Bai Zhen treats her no differently from his own sister, right, Ajiu? Ajiu did not say anything. Her small body stood there and told herself 3 times not to hit people casually. She scooped up a glass of fruit juice and lowered her head to drink it. In between her actions, the Buddha head that Bai Zhen had put on her wrist was revealed. Ji-Ru also saw that item, and the jealousy in her eyes was more than surprise. That was the purple jade Buddha head that even her grandfather wanted. It was said that it was very expensive and had reached a certain level. She still remembered that when she first met Bai Zhen had come into contact with her grandfather because of the Buddha head and the project. The reason why he had agreed to accompany her shopping seemed to have something to do with this Buddha head. However, she had always thought that he wanted this thing for his own use or to give it to Grandpa Bai. Ji-Ru had never thought that he would give such a valuable thing to a child so casually. Her eyes darkened. Ji-Ru pretended to be surprised, but her voice was very low, afraid that others would hear her. This thing. I have one too. Ajiu, this is a gift from your brother, right? He's just so lazy. He saw what I like and bought it for you. When Ajiu heard this, she frowned and lowered her head to look at her wrist, but her eyes were very dark. This was specially picked for me by little brother. I can feel it. Ji-Ru did not expect that her words would be useless to this child. It should not be like this. After so many days, shouldn't she have some self-awareness by now? It is indeed different. Ji-Ru was smart because she knew how to retreat. Mine is not this color. The details are also different. It's just that they are all Buddha heads. I'm the same as Bai Zhen. It's okay to look at them, but I'm not very used to wearing them. Unlike Ajiu, who is still young and suitable to wear these things. Ji-Ru, stop talking about a Buddha statue. Tell me, what did you prepare for Colonel Bai? One of the two girls obviously didn't want to talk to Ajiu after knowing her identity. She pulled Ji-Ru and said, I heard that other than the watch we bought together, you have an additional surprise for Colonel Bai. A faint smile appeared on Ji-Ru's gentle and moving face. Well, I can't tell you yet. You'll know after we cut the cake. Bai Zhen has always wanted this thing. Grandfather asked me to personally give it to him. I don't know what he was thinking. He definitely wants you to send yourself out as well. The two girls jokingly pushed her. Don't worry, our senior Bai definitely won't refuse. You're so beautiful and have so many betrothal gifts. Whoever marries you will be unhappy, right? Ji-Ru's face was red. Don't talk nonsense. What betrothal gifts? If you continue to be like this, I won't talk to you anymore. Ayo, you're even shy. Aju listened to the conversation between these people and glanced at the purple jade Buddha head on her hand. If the little brother really confirmed his relationship with Jiu-Ru in a while, her little Allah probably wouldn't need to be sent off. Perhaps it was really because she was too young that she was treated as a child again and again. In fact, the little brother didn't have to worry about her at all. She wouldn't cry because of such a thing, even if it was very uncomfortable. She also knew that no matter what the little brother did, his original intention had never been to hurt her. However, what she said to her second brother was true. She always wanted to beat people up. At that time, she would make things difficult for the little brother again. Now, the little brother had already delayed time in order to wait for her. Therefore, she couldn't be insensible anymore. However, could it be an illusion? The smell of meat that used to be very unpleasant was very faint today, as if it was isolated by something. Instead, the smell that entered her nose was replaced by a faint sandalwood smell. Aju was very familiar with that smell. When she used to live in the temple and read in the morning, she would often smell it. Every time her master began to recite the scriptures, 3 incense sticks would be lit in the hall of great strength. Her senior brother would knock on the wooden fish while she sat beside her senior brother and meditated. At that time, it was this smell. Aju wrinkled her little nose. The smell was faintly discernible and was not easy to catch. The strange thing was that the people around them did not smell anything. The topic of discussion of the ladies changed from Baizhun to Jiu-Ru. Aju was small to begin with. Now that she was standing to the side, she was indeed ignored. In addition, there were already many guests here. Other than Baizhun, who stayed behind to protect her, the others had indeed placed their gazes on Jiu-Ru, who was wearing a white sandwoven dress. It was not because of anything else, but because they had also heard that the Bai and Jiu families were going to have a get-together. Of course, this news was a little untrue, but after all, they were of similar age, so it might really be possible. They were all in the same circle. In addition, Jiu-Ru was old Master Gu's granddaughter, so the frequency of her being praised was naturally high. Old Master Jiu is really lucky to be able to raise such an outstanding granddaughter. That's right. Don't you see what kind of background the Jiu family has? I wonder if she has a boyfriend. I really want to go over and get to know her. Alright, you don't even have to think about it anymore. That's the school bell of our second high school. She's a couple with young Master Bai. They're such a good match. Although they haven't confirmed their relationship yet, do you think you can compare to young Master Bai? Brother, save it. Jiu-Ru listened to the discussions beside her. Not only did she not stop them, but the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. Then, she walked to Aju's side. Aju, your brother is going to speak in a while. Did you buy any gifts for him? Over there is the gift pool. If you have them, it's best to put them there so that your brother can open them later. Aju did not say anything. Jiu Cheng saw her face through the crowd. He strode over with a wine glass in his hand. Little Bean, why are you only here now? You only know how to drink. Aju has been here for a while. She didn't bring anything with her, so I reminded her to put the gifts, Jiu-Ru said with a faint smile. Jiu Cheng raised his eyebrows. Indeed, you should put the gifts. Little Bean, where are the lighters you bought for your brother? Lighters? One of the girls heard this and laughed softly. Aju, it's your brother's birthday. You gave him a lighter. This is too embarrassing. Chapter 1229. Xiao Dai. Jiu-Ru interrupted the girl. Aju is still a junior high school student. What kind of expensive gift do you want her to buy? The gift is light, but the sentiment is heavy. There's nothing wrong with a lighter. Xiao Dai stuck out her tongue. She was quite mischievous. She turned her eyes to Aju and said, Aju, I don't mean anything else. Don't take it to heart. However, the gift we gave you is indeed incomparable to Jiu-Ru's. The gift she gave to your brother is very valuable. All of them are limited edition. No matter how limited edition it is, it can't compare to liking. Jiu Cheng curled his lips. Alright, you guys can go somewhere else. It's boring to talk about this. Jiu-Ru smiled. You're so protective of Aju. Be careful that Bai Zhen, as her brother, won't be willing. Sister. Ji Cheng looked up at her and said meaningfully, don't always do these unnecessary things. Your goal is Bai Zhen, isn't it? Ji Ru paused for a moment and smiled faintly without saying anything. She knew that her cousin had always been smart and was very accurate in seeing things. He probably heard what she said just now and knew that Aju was not Bai Zhen's biological sister. Only then did he realize something. But this was nothing. The Ji family was the same. They were always selfish. They had to protect what they wanted, just like what Ji Cheng was doing now. All right. Ji Ru said to her best friends behind her, let's go over. I still have something to give to Bai Zhen. The two girls smiled at the same time and walked together hand in hand. However, they did not forget to leave a sentence. The adopted ones are so shabby and short-sighted. Why did they prepare a lighter on such an occasion? Don't say any more. Didn't you see that young Master Ji is unhappy? Who cares what she gives? Anyway, in name, she is Senior Colonel Bai's sister. She won't be despised. I still feel that a lighter is not something to be taken out at all. So let's wait and see what Ji Ru is going to give to Senior Colonel Bai so that we can be amazed. Ji Ru looked back and smiled. You guys are really convinced. If I don't tell you, are you going to keep talking like this? You can leak a little bit to us. The girl's voice was low. Speak softly so that no one else will know. Ji Ru seemed to be helpless against them. She first glanced at Aju, then whispered something into the ears of the two girls. The two girls' eyes lit up. How much is this? It's not about money, it's not about money. Ji Ru smiled faintly. Bai Zhen has always wanted it. The two girls nodded. Indeed, it's not just money. This is real power. Senior Bai will definitely be very happy. Of course, on this point, I still know Bai Zhen quite well. Ji Ru held her wine glass and laughed. As she talked, she would always let Aju hear it. Aju did not feel that the lighter was inferior to the other gifts. Although she also planned to give her little brother an Alaskan sled dog, these things were not worth telling anyone other than her little brother. As for the question of what these people were talking about, she didn't consider it at all. But there was one thing that Ji Cheng was right about. No matter how limited edition it was, it couldn't compare to the little brother's liking. In the past, Aju was sure that the little brother would be happy after seeing the things she gave him. But on such an occasion, she didn't seem to be confident anymore. She had always known that she was very stupid. It was different from what others thought. Just as many people said, she didn't know what to worry about. From the moment she left the mountain until now, the little brother had helped her deal with many things. However, was the world she knew really the real world? Would the little brother also feel that if she continued to be so stupid, he would be very tired? After all, this birthday party had indeed been changed for her. Little White, do you think I've really become little brother's burden? Aju picked up the little white cat that was following behind her and unconsciously rubbed her cheek against its soft little head. She also said in a low voice. She really missed the time when she was with her second brother now. Her second brother never seemed to think that she was stupid. In fact, her little brother was also like this when he was young. Was it just because he had grown up? Aju was not sure. Standing in the midst of the bustling crowd, she muttered to herself in a low voice, "Why am I only 12 years old? I really want to grow up quickly." At this time, just outside the military compound, a limited edition sports car drove quickly. With the sound of brakes, the car steadily stopped by the side. There were 3 people sitting in the sports car. Other than Elle, who was driving, the other people were holding a laptop. Their hands were typing quickly on the keyboard, and the screen was the interface of the Bai family's banquet. In fact, he could even hear the conversation inside. It turned out that before Aju left, Helian Qingchen had installed a small miniature camera on her fluffy rabbit hat. Not only could it record, but it could also restore the sound. Helian Qingchen was sitting at the back of the car. Her slender and fair fingers were playing with the phone that Aju had left behind. She had almost heard the entire process of her little sister entering the Bai family's banquet. "Are you kidding me? How dare you look down on our little princess so much? Monkey was about to go crazy. Fuck, why couldn't a lighter work? Who didn't use a lighter when smoking? And was that GU guy very rich? Was he as rich as the boss? Was this forcing them to compete with their parents? No, the little princess didn't need to compete with her parents at all. She could beat this GU guy by a whole street. Also, those two girls who came out of nowhere were so mean. Monkey was so angry that he exploded. He slapped his laptop. I really want to destroy her. L dismantled the steel pipe in his hand and put it back together. He was especially direct. Are we going in? Boss and the others aren't here yet. Monkey scratched his head. And before we came, Boss said that after the Buddha's head is on the little princess, it will take an hour for it to completely fuse. When L heard this, he frowned. Could it be that they were just going to wait and do nothing? Uncle Monkey. Suddenly, Helian Chingchen, who was sitting at the back of the car, spoke. He put down the monitoring headphones in his hand, and his eyes darkened. His voice was particularly cold. Let's blackmail the GU family first and let them lose some of their property. Be careful not to leave any traces. Brother L, you go in with me. It doesn't matter if the two of us get close to Aju. There are still more than 20 minutes before father and the others will arrive. We can't let those people say whatever they want at this point. Chapter 12:30. After L heard this, a cold glint flashed across his black eyes. It was as if he could not hold it in any longer. He immediately picked up his long gun and followed Helian Chingchen out of the car. Bang! The two of them got out of the car and walked towards the military compound. They were both wearing pure black clothes and looked very cool. However, Helian Chingchen was wearing a knee-length trench coat with a pure white shirt inside. In the night, he looked more dangerous than usual. His long sleeves were fluttering in the wind. In the fog, with Monkey as a cover, the two of them changed their figures. They pulled the rope and jumped into the courtyard. Their movements were very fast. Their skills were even more professional than the special forces. They did not make a single sound. Moreover, they knew this military compound very well. If others wanted to enter, it would be very troublesome. However, this kind of thing could be settled in minutes for the ghost organization. After entering the compound, they were outside the Bai family. The two people sent by Jiu Ru were still guarding the entrance. When they saw that someone had come, they immediately asked Helian Chingchen and the others to take out their invitation letters. Their attitude was very tough. You are not allowed to enter without an invitation letter. Hearing this, Helian Chingchen only tilted her head and smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up. Then, she reached out and grabbed the other party's neck in a flash. With a creak, she quickly finished off the two people. Although they only fainted from the pain, they did not have the slightest chance to call for help. As the corner of the black trench coat fell, L cleaned up the aftermath. He dragged one of them in each hand and directly threw them into the darkness. You want to stop me with just the two of you? Helian Chingchen put one hand in her pocket and looked down at the two black shadows lying in the grass. The corners of her mouth curled up, filled with a coldness that Aju had never seen before. Then, she turned her head and said to Elle with a cold face, "Let's go." In the Bai family's room, the music in the hall became louder and louder. Everyone was chatting happily. Most people's gazes were still following Jiu Ru's changes. They were generally hoping to hear more shocking news after the birthday banquet ended. Aju did not say much. She sat silently in her seat with a drink in her hand. She was exceptionally obedient. Finally, when she drank her second cup, the little brother appeared. Bai Zhen, who had changed his clothes, did not seem to be as tired as before. His noble and handsome face was as cold as ever. Everyone stood up one after another. Bai Zhen took the red wine from the waiter at the side, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his lips. "I've made everyone wait for a long time. I'm very grateful that all of you can take time out of your busy schedules to attend my birthday party. I'll toast to all of you first." As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Zhen raised his head and drank the wine in his hand in one gulp. Then, he handed the wine glass to the waiter and said indifferently, "Today, 14 years ago, I got off the plane. For a long time, I felt that it would be very difficult to do things in the future. In fact, for so many years, uncles have always been very good to me. In the future, I will complete everything that my father taught me back then. I also hope that uncles will not show mercy when training me. My father used to say that only when there is a country can there be a family. I will be like uncles and become a responsible member of the Bai family. After Bai Zhen finished speaking, he raised his glass again. The reaction at this time was different because all the soldiers present, no matter how great their titles were, knew that what happened on the plane was not an ordinary plane accident. It was Bai Zhen's parents who sacrificed themselves to save the passengers on the plane. Bai Zhen's father was a very admirable soldier, and Bai Zhen had obviously inherited this kind of spirit that could not be described with words. The older one was, the more they knew what kind of spirit it was. It was never just a casual remark. There was such a person who could clearly live a more comfortable and relaxed life, but for the sake of protecting his family and country, he gave up many direct shortcuts. Perhaps this was the Huaxia soldiers. The inheritance that had fused into their blood did not seem to be changed by anything. A burst of applause erupted in the hall because of Bai Zhen's words. It was all given to this child by the old commanders who wanted to retire. Old Master Ji Yu stood in the middle, admiring it while nodding gently. His old face was full of a satisfied smile, as if he was very satisfied with Bai Zhen. Then, he glanced at Ji Yu and asked the person beside him to pass the thing to his granddaughter. Leaning on the dragon-headed walking stick in his hand, a hint of kindness appeared between his brows. Go. Bai Zhen has always wanted this document. I always delayed giving it to him. Such a time is the most suitable to give him the birthday present he likes the most. That kid Bai Zhen will definitely be happy. Under the envious gazes of her friends, Ji Yu blushed and softly nodded. Then, she dragged the hem of her white dress and walked towards Bai Zhen's position. She had long said that she knew Bai Zhen as well as she knew herself. People like them were born to like power. Bai Zhen and her were the most perfect combination. Since that child always refused to believe it, then she would let her see with her own eyes what the gap between them was. From the moment Ji Yu walked towards Bai Zhen, the gazes of all the guests in the room moved casually towards her. The atmosphere of the birthday banquet instantly reached a new height. Isn't that the Ji Yu family's girl? What does she want to do? Could it be a confession? Oh my God, so romantic. The two girls who followed Ji Yu also clenched their hands tightly. They looked at the scene in front of them excitedly, looking forward to the next development. On the other hand, Bai Zhen, who was standing tall and straight, did not see anyone walking towards him at the beginning. He had his back facing Ji Yu the entire time. His eyes were looking at the crowd as if he was looking for someone. Then, after he heard the discussions of the crowd, he turned his head. At this moment, Ji Yu had already walked to his side with a document in her hand. Bai Zhen lowered his eyes. A faint cold light flashed through his bottomless eyes. Ji Yu was wearing a pure white and fresh gauze dress. Her soft long hair draped over her shoulders, and her head was decorated with some bright stars, making her look like a gentle angel. Following the laughter around her, Ji Yu smiled gently. Bai Zhen, this is the Ji Yu Corporation contract you've always wanted. I'm giving it to you as your birthday present. I hope you like it. As soon as she finished speaking, the hall burst into an uproar. At this moment, Ji Yu seemed to have become the focus of everyone's attention. Even if Aju did not know anything, she knew how precious this gift was. Seeing this, Aju was stunned. Her big round eyes dimmed a little. Before Bai Zhen could answer, she heard an unusual commotion coming from behind her. Chapter 1231. Then, Aju saw her little brother's face turn cold. Ji Yu, Li Hailu, and the others all widened their eyes. At this time, she seemed to have realized something. She suddenly turned her body and followed everyone's gaze to the door. There was a youth who was as calm as the wind standing in the light. His windbreaker fluttered in the wind, and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved. His smile was very beautiful. It was bright and clean like water poured down from the sun, as if it could sweep away all the grievances in the depths of one's heart. Second brother, Aju called out from the bottom of her heart. After a short trot, She directly ran in front of Helian Qingchen. She seemed to be extremely happy. Her 2 cat ears stood up, and her eyes, which were dim just now, were filled with light. Why was second brother here? Didn't he say that he was busy? Li Hailu also wanted to ask this question. Helian Qingchen, why are you here? He did not remember sending an invitation to this guy. Helian Qingchen smiled, and a faint arc appeared on her beautiful lips. I'm here to deliver a gift on behalf of Ajiu. Deliver a gift? Li Hailu snorted coldly. If Ajiu has a gift, will Ajiu give it herself? Do I need to give it to you? As he spoke, he walked over. Although he did not make a move, his eyes were fixed on Helian Qingchen's face. Helian Qingchen had no intention of retreating at all. His long and thick eyelashes drooped down, forming a dark shadow. His entire person gave people the impression that he had a kind of indifferent feeling. The atmosphere between the two of them was obviously not right. Old Master Bai, who was dressed in a military uniform, looked at this scene and frowned slightly. Immediately, an adjutant walked over and came to Helian Qingchen's side. When Ajiu saw that the adjutants had moved, her ears pricked up. She turned to the side and stood in front of Helian Qingchen, looking at the other party with a firm gaze. When the adjutants saw that Ajiu was protecting that person, they were stunned for a moment and could not help but look at their young master. Bai Zhen's eyes had already followed Ajiu's movements, and they were extremely cold. His pair of dark eyes were deep, unlike his usual self. Xiao Lin watched worriedly from the side. He turned to the side and whispered to Helian Qingchen, if you want to fight, we can accompany you any day, but not today. Today is Bai Zhen's birthday. All the guests are here. It's not suitable for us to be tit for tat. If you cause trouble here, the person who will be in trouble in the end will only be Ajiu. After Helian Qingchen heard this, she laughed softly. Xiao Lin, I just said that I'm here to deliver the gift on behalf of Ajiu. You can continue with your business. Don't worry about me. I don't care about you. What's the meaning of your high-profile appearance? Li Hailu really wanted to grab Helian Qingchen by the collar and interrogate her. However, he had to restrain himself. It would not be good to make a move on Bai Zhen's birthday party. Ji Ru looked at this scene and said with a faint smile, Ajiu, your friend doesn't have an invitation, right? Why did he come just like that? I don't even know how to continue delivering the gift. Ajiu narrowed her big eyes and glanced in Ji Ru's direction. She silently recited 3 times not to beat people up before reaching out to grab Helian Qingchen's hand. Helian Qingchen did not have the time to fight with Ji Ru in the past, but now it was different. Who said I don't have an invitation? Helian Qingchen looked at the purple jade Buddha head on Ajiu's wrist, and the corners of her mouth revealed a meaningful smile. The 2 girls beside Ji Ru laughed one after another, and there was obvious ridicule in their voices. You really dare to brag? Aren't you afraid that the wind will blow your tongue off? Who are you? Are you worthy of the Bai family sending you an invitation? Stop dreaming, okay? When the surrounding guests heard this, all of them turned to look at Helian Qingchen. They tilted their heads and began to discuss. Old Master Bai's face also lost its usual kindness. However, it was not directed at Helian Qingchen. It was just that he did not like the words of these 2 juniors. It was too unpleasant to hear and too sarcastic. Ajiu felt that she was about to lose control of the primordial power in her body. Even Buddha Wuli's guidance was about to be useless. She looked at Bai Zhen again. Yes, she looked at him again. Otherwise, she would really pounce on him and beat him up. Bai Zhen's eyes were also looking at her. It could also be said that from the beginning, he had been looking for Ajiu. However, he did not expect that when he found her, she would directly run to another person's side. Helian Qingchen. Ever since this person appeared, he had already started to lose her. Until now, he was extremely sober as he watched himself sink into depravity. When the pain reached a certain point, it was the ruthlessness that he no longer wanted to let go. Ajiu, come here. Bai Zhen suddenly opened his mouth. Perhaps it was because he had not recovered from his cold, but his voice was hoarse and cold. Ajiu did not move. She knew that if she moved, Bai Zhen would definitely deal with her second brother. She could see it. I'll say it again. Come here. Bai Zhen saw that she did not even have the slightest intention of returning to his side. His throat, which was already red, seemed to have been burned by a fire. It was so painful that he was covered in cuts and bruises. Adju glanced at Bai Zhen and then looked at Jiyu Ru, who was standing not far away from him. She remembered the scene where that person wanted to give her a gift and shook her head silently. This time, Bai Zhen could not even feel the pain. His eyes were like water. He just looked at the small face that he had raised since she was young. His chest was so stuffy that it almost made him feel uncomfortable to even breathe. For him, you don't even listen to Bai Zhen's words. Bai Zhen's voice was very hoarse, as if it was being ground out from his throat. Adju opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something. Her voice was as gentle as a trickling stream, as if she was the other host of the banquet. She said warmly, "All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Since you're Adju's friend, it doesn't matter if you have an invitation or not. It's a good thing that you can come. Let's continue to give gifts. Didn't Adju also have a gift for your friend to give to your little brother? Why don't you take it out and take a look? Yeah, Adju, where's your lighter? Hurry up and give it to your brother." The two girls laughed again. However, you have to ask your friend for help to give a lighter. This is making a mountain out of a molehill. Helian Qingchen listened to these mocking words and smiled lightly. Who told you that the gift I want to give on behalf of Adju is a lighter? What else? Jiyu Ru also smiled and pointed out, Qingchen, we are very clear about your family situation, so it's better to do what you can with gifts. The two girls were even more disapproving. What gift is so nice to hear? Who knows how shabby it might be? Adju, this friend you found to give you a gift is too unpresentable. Chapter 1232. When Adju heard this, she immediately clenched her fists. Her entire body was in a state of battle readiness. She was like a little tiger that was about to stretch out her claws and bite. At this moment, an evil and arrogant voice suddenly sounded from the door. Who said that my brother is not presentable? It was just a short moment. The hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone seemed to be holding their breaths. Especially the female guests present. Whether they were adults or not, their faces were filled with uncontrollable excitement. Helian Qingchen did not need to turn around to know who had come. The corners of her mouth were half-curved as she looked in Jiyu Ru's direction. The birthday present that I wanted to give on behalf of Adju has arrived. For some reason, that half-smile that did not show her teeth actually made Jiyu Ru feel a chill down her spine. At this moment, the slender figure that could gather all the resplendent light had already walked in. He placed his left hand on Helian Qingchen's shoulder in a very beautiful posture. His fair skin was glowing like a vampire noble, and the corners of his mouth carried a unique viciousness that could make countless girls infatuated with him. It was luxurious, dark, and enough to topple a city. A strand of silver hair hung down and blocked his eyes, as if his face could not be seen clearly. But even so, people could also recognize him. That was Bailey Shangxie, the real-life version of Bailey Shangxie. This thought swept through all the women present like a storm, including the two girls who had just mocked Helian Qingchen. After all, Bailey Shangxie did not seem like an ordinary idol star. Every drama he filmed, the characters created would be hailed as classics. Not to mention the 16 or 17-year-old students, even the older rich ladies present had always been fascinated by the role he played. Bailey Shangxie's ability to charm people could not be described with words. In addition, everyone knew what kind of background he had. The young director of the Zhu Wei Group held the economic lifelines of countless industries in his hands. Such a person actually said that Helian Qingchen was his younger brother. The faces of the two girls who had been smug suddenly lost all color. Without a doubt, they were all fans of Bailey Shangxie, and they liked Bailey Shangxie very much. Even the screen of their phones was Bailey Shangxie's photo. But what did they just do? They actually insulted the young master's most beloved younger brother. All the fans knew that Bailey Shangxie cared about his younger brother the most. Even when he grew up, the title of his brother Guo Minute had not been removed. But how did things turn out like this? Didn't that Hellion Qingchen have no background? How did he become the young master's younger brother? Jiyu Ru's expression also began to turn ugly. She originally wanted to use Hellion Qingchen, this poor boy, to make things difficult for Ajiu. However, she did not expect that she would accidentally provoke the people from Ju Wei group. What should she do now? How was she going to smooth things over? Jiyu Ru clenched her fists anxiously. Bailey Shangxie's appearance was undoubtedly like throwing a huge rock in the hall. Even Li Hailu and Xiao Lin's expressions turned blank for a moment. What was going on? Why did Bailey Shangxie come here? How did he become Hellion Qingchen's brother? Questions that they could not even think of before popped up one after another. They only felt that something seemed to be out of their control. It seemed that this time, things were really a little complicated. Only Ajiu was very happy. She held the little white cat in her hand and looked at Bailey Shangxie with her small face. It was really the first time she had seen him. It was the first time she had seen her big brother in person. Her big brother and second brother were completely different. They were clearly both born by her mother. Ajiu was overjoyed, so her thoughts were a little incoherent. Bailey Shangxie also lowered his head and met his little sister's big eyes that were as clear as water. He looked at the small Ajiu. Bailey Shangxie endured it again and again before he controlled his hand and did not pick up his little cute thing. He was afraid that if he touched his little sister, she would feel uncomfortable. Ajiu did not care if her big brother hugged her or not. She raised a pair of small ears and a beautiful little face. She quietly reached out and grabbed Bailey Shangxie's sleeve. The three siblings were finally standing together. Bailey Shangxie's hand was still on Hellion Qingchen's shoulder. Ajiu stood in front of her second brother, looking very cute. With the smiling Hellion Qingchen as the center, the three of them stood in the middle of the hall. Each of them had their own characteristics, and each of them made people unable to take their eyes off them. When combined, they looked like a scene from a comic. Just now, someone thought that I was too shabby, so they questioned me and asked if I had received an invitation from the Bai family. Hellion Qingchen said with a faint smile, so if my brother didn't appear, I would actually be looked down upon like this. It's just because I rode a bicycle to school. Girls nowadays are really powerful. Don't you think so, Miss Jiyu? Jiyu Ru, who was named, froze. She could feel many gazes shooting in her direction. This made her want to find a hole to hide in. Hellion Qingchen ignored her and looked at Old Master Bai. I remember that Old Master Bai sent 4 invitations to our family. He even mentioned on the invitations that he hoped my mother could bring us along to attend. That's right. Old Master Bai's laughter was heard. It was still bright and clear. I didn't expect that girl's child to be so big. Good, 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 really good. Hellion Qingchen smiled again. Thank you for your concern, Old Master Bai. My family has always been unexpected. At this point, he lowered his head to look at his little sister in front of him. Old Master Bai saw that the doting look in his eyes was not hidden at all. He thought that this child had also fallen in love with Ajiu. He turned around and looked at his grandson worriedly. Hellion Qingchen continued, this time, our whole family came here not only to congratulate young Master Bai on his birthday, but also for one more thing. Chapter 1233. There's one more thing. Old Master Bai couldn't think of anything else. He frowned. What's the other thing? I want to take up some of your time. I want to talk about that matter later. Hellion Qingchen laughed. Before that, I really want to ask Miss Jiyu, why are you so sure that the things I give Ajiu are not valuable? Old Master Jiyu could not sit still at this moment. He leaned on the dragon-headed walking stick in his hand and looked at his granddaughter worriedly. Fortunately, Jiyu Ru reacted quickly. A moment ago, her fingers were still clenched tightly. The next moment, a gentle and moving smile appeared on her face. Her long dress swayed like an angel, and her face was full of sincerity. You misunderstood. I didn't mean that. It's just that Ajiu told us just now that she wanted to give her little brother a lighter, so I thought that you were giving her these little things. After all, she's still a child and doesn't have much money. At this point, she looked at Ajiu with her beautiful eyes. Ajiu, say something for Sister Ru. Didn't you say that you wanted to give your little brother a lighter? If you don't say anything, your friend will misunderstand Sister Rue. Misunderstand? Without waiting for anyone to react, Bailey Shangxie suddenly moved. He smiled viciously and lowered his eyes to look at Jiyu Ru. His handsome face was clearly written with the word bloodthirsty. I think you're the one who misunderstood. Who told you that Ajiu doesn't have much money? Looking at his expression, Jiyu Ru was shocked, but she bit her thin lips. That forbearing look made people feel sorry for her. Forget it. Since Ajiu doesn't want to say it, then I can only defend myself. In fact, Ajiu is not a member of the Bai family. As soon as Jiyu Ru said this, everyone's reaction was different. Especially Bai Zhen. His knife-like gaze shot toward Jiyu Ru, and his voice was extremely cold. Who said that Ajiu is not a member of the Bai family? Bai Zhen. Jiyu Ru's long dress swayed, and her face was very aggrieved. At this point, do you still want to ignore Ajiu's thoughts? She had always treated herself as an outsider, so she spent her money carefully. After all, she came from the mountains. Entering a family like the Bai family, from a certain perspective, was a burden for her. She should be more suited to a simpler and freer life. Perhaps that environment is a little bitter and poor, but that's what suits her. When Helian Qingchen heard this, she smiled coldly. You just want to say that Ju doesn't come from a good family and can't afford expensive things? I don't mean to emphasize this point. Jiyu Ru lowered her head. I don't want to expose Ajiu's matter in public, but if I don't say it, Ajiu won't say it, and the misunderstanding will always exist. Jiyu Ru, who said these words, was like a helpless narrator. Those who heard her words would more or less decide that Ajiu's gift was worthless. It had nothing to do with her at all. It was all because of Ajiu's background. However, it seems that there is indeed a misunderstanding. This sentence was not said by Helian Qingchen. When her voice sounded, it was accompanied by the buzzing of a motorcycle. Therefore, at that moment, people subconsciously turned their heads to look for the source of the sound. At the entrance, the mottled light faded away. A delicate and handsome figure walked in, gradually revealing her incomparably clear face. Her long chestnut-colored curly hair reached her waist, and she was holding a pure black helmet in her left hand. Behind her was a motorcycle in full swing. There was another person standing beside the motorcycle. He was different from Helian Vivian's valiant figure. His existence was proof of what it meant to be a vampire aristocrat. His handsomeness was self-evident. As for that man, he could almost produce light by himself. He had a head of silver-grey hair, a face that did not show his age at all, and a smooth curve outlined by his chin. He was so noble that it was almost bewitching. Even his fingers were so clean that they did not look good. They were wrapped in pure black gloves along the lines. It really made people think of the jade-like face that people in ancient times described when they described the children of aristocratic families. Such a man, who else could it be but Beligaju? The two people who were known as the most compatible walked to the center of the hall and stood on both sides of Ajiu. The scene immediately caused an uproar. Almost everyone looked at them as if they were looking at a god in their hearts. If it were not for the fact that Beligaju had been living in seclusion all these years, who would take the Jiyu family in the business circle seriously? Ju Wei Group would always be a miracle in the business world. Even if its protagonist did not appear, it still stood there, symbolizing the top of the pyramid. In fact, the Bailey family's influence had always been strong. It was just that they had hidden it deeply. Oh my God, that's the founder of Ju Wei Group, right? I didn't expect even him to come. The Bai family is really amazing. I heard that this CEO Ju has always attended such banquets. And his wife, they are also unfathomable. What kind of wind blew today that they are all here? Just as the people in the hall were discussing excitedly. When Bai Zhen saw Beligaju's face, his pitch-black eyes immediately narrowed. It was him, the mysterious man he had seen at the place of the eminent monk. As if sensing the gaze from the youth, Beligaju lifted his eyes, and his gaze was very indifferent. Bai Zhen clenched his fingers. It was indeed him. Moreover, he still remembered him. Baizhan never thought that the mysterious person he met on the mountain would be the man who was known as a business legend. As for Ajiu, at this moment, her small tiger face was completely stunned. She just stared blankly at the white cat on her head and watched this scene with her almond-like round eyes. She never dreamed that she would see her father and mother. Her two brothers appeared in front of her at the same time. She was already very happy because that was something that would only happen in her dreams. But now, Ajiu raised her small face and looked at Beligaju and Hellion Vivian in front of her without moving. She always felt that all her dreams had come true. She was too excited. What should she do? Thinking of this, Ajiu tilted her small head. She really wanted to beat someone up to vent. Or lie in bed and roll around twice. It seemed that no matter how old she was, when Ajiu was excited, her expression was very direct and domineering. She would either beat people up or like to spin in circles. It was the same now. It was just that the situation did not allow it. Otherwise, she would have already played a set of Shaolin fist techniques on Jiyu Ru or circled around Hellion Vivian. Chapter 1234. However, at this moment, Jiyu Ru did not know what the relationship between Hellion Vivian and Ajiu was. Just by listening to Hellion Wei's words, Jiyu Ru thought that this woman with a high status was speaking up for her. She immediately looked at Hellion Wei with a smile on her face. Fortunately, I have you who believes in me. Old Master Jiyu also thought that Hellion Vivian's words were to help his granddaughter out. He immediately walked up with the dragon-headed walking stick in his hand and said to Beligaju, CEO Ju, what a coincidence. We meet again. Bailey Jiu did not say anything. He was just like a well-mannered aristocrat, standing there with an indifferent expression. Old Master Jiyu continued, CEO Ju and Madam are the most sensible. The children know best about the matters between them. Since everyone is here, let's not let misunderstandings create estrangement. I brought a bottle of red wine that has been in my collection for 100 years. Let's have a few drinks with Old Bai today for the banquet. Thank you, Madam, for speaking up for my granddaughter. Speaking up for your granddaughter? When Beligaju heard this, he couldn't help but tilt his head and smile. His silver hair fell to the side with his movements, leaving only a faint smile on his lips. I don't think my madam meant that at all. Hellion Vivian also smiled. Her clear eyes glanced in Jiyu Ru's direction before she said to Old Master Jiang, Old man, the misunderstanding I'm talking about is not the misunderstanding your granddaughter is talking about. You're really thinking too much. Hearing this, Jiyu Ru's face instantly froze. The pitiful smile that was originally on her face stopped awkwardly on her face. She didn't expect this situation to be caused by her overthinking. No matter what, she was still the daughter of the Jiyu family. Knowing that her two sons had misunderstood her, shouldn't Hellion Vivian speak up for her? Why did it feel like the other party was saying that she was trying to climb up the social ladder? Jiyu Ru bit her lip tightly. She really didn't know how to smooth things over for herself. She couldn't help but look at her grandfather. Old Master Jiyu also felt like he had been hit in the head. He didn't expect that at his age, he would still lose face like this. No matter what, thank you, Madam, for unintentionally helping our innocent child out of this predicament. He thought that if he said this, she would laugh it off. After all, they were all in the business world. Even if the Jiyu family was indeed not comparable to the Ju Wei group. At this point, this matter should be considered to be over. However, what he didn't expect was that Hellion Vivian didn't have any intention of giving him a way out. Instead, after hearing his words, the corners of her mouth curled up. It was very, very cold. Old Master Jiyu, after I give you the gift in my hand, let's talk about this misunderstanding again. Let's see whose child is innocent because we really should have a good talk about family education. At this point, she paused and looked at the tall and straight youth. She smiled faintly and handed something over. I heard that it's popular to give contracts as birthday gifts nowadays. Since Baizhan likes it, I also have a contract here. It's signed with the Ju Wei Group. 10% of the profits will be purchased. Baizhan, this is for you. Happy birthday. It was also a contract, but the Ju Wei Group's contract meant something. No one present didn't know what that meant. This was simply several streets ahead of the Gu family's contract. However, Bai Zhen didn't take it. Even his expression didn't change because his gaze was always on Ajiu. Helian Vivian smiled when she saw this. She turned her head to look at Old Master Bai and said, "Old Chief, your grandson really doesn't disappoint. However, this first birthday gift must be given out because this gift is to thank Bai Zhen for giving the purple jade Buddha head that he worked so hard to get to Ajiu. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to come at this time." Purple jade Buddha head? Old Master Bai still didn't know about this matter, but he was very sharp and sensed that something was wrong with those words. "Why do you have to thank Bai Zhen for giving Ajiu something?" Old Master Bai turned his face and pretended to be serious as he asked Helian Vivian, "Girl, what exactly is going on?" Speaking of which, Old Master Bai and Helian Vivian used to know each other. However, it was not a direct superior-subordinate relationship. It was when Old Master Bai was at the border. Young Master Tang had sent the ghost organization over to provide support. From then on, Old Master Bai had the idea of taking Helian Vivian as his adopted daughter. Unfortunately, the girl ran away quickly. When they contacted each other again, she said that the people at home were all evil and it was not convenient for her to come to the Bai family. This time, she came, but she always said something inexplicable. "Nothing." Helian Vivian smiled lightly. "Because Ajiu is the person I mentioned to you before." You mean?" Even Old Master Bai, who had experienced great storms, began to lose his composure. His eyes flickered as he looked at Ajiu, who was standing under the light with a cute face. This child, she was actually, Helian Vivian curled her lips. Her voice was not loud, but her words were clear. "That's right, she is my daughter." This sentence was like a thunderclap that sounded on the flat ground, heavily smashing into the banquet. Peng. The contract document that Jiu Ru was still holding in her hand fell. Her face seemed to have been slapped hard by someone, and she could not help but turn pale. Everyone present couldn't help but make different sounds after hearing this news. Xiao Lin and Li Hailu were standing not far away. They looked at Ajiu in a daze, their faces full of disbelief. Helian Vivian's daughter? Then isn't she the legendary little princess of the Zhu Wei group? The one who has never been seen before? How could it be her? Jiu Ru did not believe her ears at all. How could that child who only knew how to eat and drink become the little princess of the Zhu Wei group? She was clearly an orphan who came down from the mountain. She should have saved a lot of money. She had already heard about Ajiu's situation from her grandfather. It was Grandpa Bai who told her grandfather personally. They had brought Ajiu back from a temple in a remote mountain area. The incense in that temple was not strong. If it were not for the fact that the abbot was an expert, Bai Zhen would have been sent there to counsel him. No one would know about that kind of remote place. Moreover, Grandpa Bai also said that Ajiu had already stayed in the temple when she was a baby. When Ajiu was young, she always said that she would go and find her family when she grew up. But no one would take a child's words seriously. Which truly wealthy family would send a child to a temple at such a young age? Therefore, Jiu Ru made up her mind. Even if Ajiu had a family, it would only be those poor farmers who casually threw their children away because they could not live a good life. Chapter 1235. Jiu Ru had always relied on her own guesses to think that Ajiu was from a poor family. However, Ajiu was lucky enough to meet a kind senior monk who picked her up and brought her back to the temple. She used this opportunity to get close to the Bai family. If that senior monk was not Bai Zhen's master, I'm afraid no one knows who Ajiu is yet. At most, she was just a village girl. How could she become Bai Zhen's sister? It was because of this relationship that Jiu Ru wanted to isolate her without any fear. How could an orphan girl become the Bai family's treasure just by relying on luck? She even became the only person Bai Zhen allowed to get close to. But now, someone actually told her that that child was not a village girl, but the little princess of the Zhu Wei group. Jiu Ru only felt a burning pain on her face. Disbelief could not replace her current emotions at all. Because the smile on Helian Vivian's face was obviously telling her what it meant to humiliate herself. When she saw this scene, her heart skipped a beat. There was only one thought in her mind. She was finished. The two girls who had been following behind her complacently couldn't help but turn pale. They knew that Adju was not the biological granddaughter of the Bai family. Instead, they heard the news of her being adopted from some mountainous area from Jiu-Ru. Therefore, they did not take that child seriously. Now, as long as they thought of what they had said, the two girls' hearts trembled. The little princess of the Ju Wei group. They could not wait to curry favor with her. They could not afford to offend her at all. Such news was indeed like a bombshell. Not only did it give a heavy blow to those who had mocked Adju, but even Bai Zhen's usually indifferent gaze shook violently. His clean and handsome face was filled with shock. He looked at the child he had raised for nearly 8 years. He had never thought that she would have any family other than him. Ever since they were on the mountain, that child had used her soft little hand to hold his fingertips. She was wearing a kasaya and had a bald head. She had called him Big Brother seriously and said that she would treat him well in the future. Bai Zhen told himself that he had to raise this child as his own. He had to give her everything he could. As long as she wanted it, as long as he had it. It did not matter that Adju did not have parents. Anyway, Adju had him. He would make her the happiest person in the world. He remembered that when she was young, the little girl would always tumble in his arms. She even said that her mother had sent her away for a reason, but she didn't say the exact reason. At that time, Bai Zhen only felt his heart ache because he could clearly see the longing hidden in the child's eyes. He thought that she was like him, who had lost her parents a long time ago. That was why he used such words to comfort himself. But now, Bai Zhen looked at the still cute little tiger face. For a moment, it was as if a bottle of colorful paint had been flipped over in his heart. He didn't know how to describe that feeling. His girl finally had a family. No wonder Adju likes Bailey Shangxie so much since she was young. She was very passionate about his movies and what not. Li Hailu's IQ seemed to have been lit up all of a sudden. He slapped his forehead and said, "Oh my God, so that's how it is. Because of that guy, she looked at me fiercely many times." Xiao Lin also remembered the first time he took Adju shopping. When Adju saw Bailey Shangxie on the big screen of the advertisement in the shopping mall. At that time, he felt that Adju did not seem like a child who would chase after celebrities. However, when it came to the problem of Bailey Shangxie, she was especially irrational. She was like a little girl chasing after her idol. Bailey Shangxie did not appear on television very often. Every time Bailey Shangxie came out, her round almond eyes would light up. At that time, Bai Zhen had even eaten a big bowl of vinegar because of this matter. He had even made a fuss about going out to live outside once. Now that he thought about it, as a sister, she must have been extremely supportive and fond of her brother. Also, when they met Helian Qingchen in the school cafeteria and provoked her, no wonder Adju had such a reaction. She looked at them with vigilance and did not give in at all. At that time, they still did not understand why Adju would fight with them to such an extent for an outsider. Now, the truth was out. When they were fighting with Helian Qingchen, there were two girls beside them who kept mocking Helian Qingchen. According to Adju's temper, she did not directly rush over at that time and send them flying with a kick. This was already the greatest extent of her tolerance. At that time, Adju probably cared about their face, so she did not beat up Jiu-Ru and the others. But even so, he and Hai Lu were very clear about how Bai Zhen had survived that day. In front of him, Adju chose to protect others. Bai Zhen did not attend that afternoon's class, nor did he have the mood to care about other things. Otherwise, Jiu-Ru would not have jumped around for so long. When Xiao Lin thought of this, he turned his eyes and could not help but look in Bai Zhen's direction. Now, Bai Zhen was most concerned about the identity of that person. Since Helian Qingchen was Adju's brother, the two of them should be fine. However, Xiao Lin knew that Bai Zhen had really done everything that he had disdained to do in the past for Adju. For example, going to the sea to do business. He was the one who opened up the connections, and Bai Zhen was in charge of all the operations and commands. They earned a lot and were very good at making investments. After all, the resources were there. Bai Zhen had always been like this. Compared to his peers, He was always so practical. All of this was because he wanted to become stronger. That youth had once told him personally that even without the Bai family, he would still give Aju the best life. But now, not only did Aju have a family, but her background was also so unbelievable. With Bai Jun's personality, other than being happy, there should be something deeper. Hellion Vivian did not look at the reactions of the others. Her eyes had always been looking at the Jiyu family. Then, she reached out and touched Aju's head. Her voice was flat, but it made old Master Gu's expression change immediately. The misunderstanding I was talking about is this misunderstanding. Hellion Vivian chuckled. My daughter is not as poor as Miss Jiyu thinks. Originally, I didn't want to make such a big fuss. It's just that a 17-year-old girl doesn't enjoy her youth and has to hide so many schemes to deal with someone younger than her. Old Master Jiyu, does your Jiyu family really think that there is no one behind my daughter? When Old Master Jiyu heard this, he looked at the gazes cast at them from all directions and hurriedly explained, this is all a misunderstanding. Xiero definitely has no intention of dealing with Aju. Chapter 1236. Old Master Jiyu. Hellion Vivian curled her lips. Do you really think I can't hear anything? Just now, every word your granddaughter said was deliberately misleading others, making everyone think that the problem in this matter was all because of Aju. I have to say that this move is indeed beautiful. I didn't, Mrs. Hellion, I really didn't. Jiyu Ru's beautiful eyes were red, as if she was trying her best to suppress her grievance. She said to Hellion Vivian in a low voice, I couldn't think of so many things, so how could I mislead others? If Madam really thinks that I made Aju suffer, I can apologize. I can do anything you want. After all, I really didn't know that Aju was your daughter. Those who didn't know the reason saw this scene and thought that Hellion Vivian was using her power to make things difficult for a junior. The one who was making things difficult was a 17-year-old girl. Hellion Vivian looked at Jiyu Ru's haggard little face and suddenly smiled. If that's the case, then apologize first. Hearing Hellion Vivian's words, Jiyu Ru's body trembled, and a trace of uneasiness flashed across her beautiful face. In fact, how could she be willing to apologize? So many people were watching. For her to personally apologize to another person, this was simply a kind of torture for her. However, she had already come to this point. If she didn't say anything, she would only be more embarrassed. Thinking of this, Jiyu Ru gently bit her red lips and looked at little Aju with red eyes. Aju, Sister Ru doesn't know why things have gotten to this point. It was clearly just a birthday gift, but it caused everyone to misunderstand. If Sister Ru's unintentional actions made you feel uncomfortable, Sister Ru apologizes to you. After Jiyu Ru finished speaking, she turned her head and cried. She looked as if she had been beaten into confessing. Old Master Jiyu also felt uncomfortable. He turned his head and said to Hellion Vivian angrily, Madam should be satisfied now, right? Not satisfied. These three words were not said by Hellion Vivian. It was Beligaju, who was standing at the side and had not spoken. Aju looked back with her round almond-shaped eyes. Bailey Jiu glanced sideways and glanced at her. Then, he reached out and placed his hand on her little head, rubbing it back and forth. The black gloves perfectly wrapped around his slender hands, making him look like a character who had walked out of a comic book. His handsome and dignified face was still as calm as ever. But he did not know why. The moment he opened his mouth, that evil and cold aura suddenly became very strong. Aju raised her hand and touched the top of her head that her father had touched. Her small face was even more stunned. Did Imperial Father stroke her head? His head was touched by his father. This was the only thought left in Aju's mind. He didn't even care about the people around him. Bailey Shangxie and Hellion Qingchen watched from the side and couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. Back in the day, Imperial Father had never touched their heads or killed them. It was already good enough that he didn't throw them here and there. When it came to Qingchen, the man still had some patience. When it came to Bailey Shangxie, he really displayed the characteristics of a demon to the fullest. Bailey Shangxie basically didn't want to recall the past. Thousands of years ago, in order to find his mother, his father was so angry that he almost destroyed his son. Now, The Jiyu family was actually throwing a tantrum at his mother. They were really too blind. Old Master Jiyu still didn't realize what he was going to face next. He only felt that the Bailey family was deliberately looking for trouble. His old face became more and more unsightly, and the anger in his voice also became stronger. CEO Ju, are you insisting on making things difficult for my Jiyu family? Beligaju looked at him, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up into a cold smile. The apology is not sincere. How is it making things difficult for your Jiyu family? I've already said that. Is it not sincere? Jiyu Ru's face turned pale. She looked at the crowd, and tears welled up in her beautiful eyes. She looked very pitiful. She lowered her head and muttered, "It's just a misunderstanding. How else do you want me to apologize? Even the Ju Wei group can't bully people like this." Beligaju didn't say anything. He just curled his lips. That smile was extremely cold. It was so cold that Jiyu Cheng, who had been watching from the side, subconsciously shivered. He kept feeling that something was wrong. But he couldn't tell what was wrong. At this time, Bailey Shangxia laughed viciously. "Bully people?" As he spoke, he took a step in the direction of Jiyu Ru. He sneered and said word by word, "If you say so, then I'll also tell you that we are bullying you." "You." Jiyu Ru took a deep breath. Then, her eyes turned red. Even her shoulders trembled. She looked extremely weak and pitiful. Old Master Jiyu patted his granddaughter's back. Then, his face became much more serious. "Our Jiyu family has always been gentle. We never want to be enemies with anyone. The Ju Wei group is a big business. Our Jiyu family really can't afford to offend them. But CEO Ju, if you keep making things difficult for people like this, our Jiyu family won't take a step back." As soon as Old Master Jiyu finished speaking, there was an uproar in the hall. After all, those who came to the Bai family's birthday party were all famous people. These people were different from ordinary businessmen. Most of them had a red background. Some old commanders were born with such justice. Hearing this, the gazes that were cast at the Bailey family gradually became disapproving. "Isn't this too overbearing? Can't even apologize? Besides, that girl Jiyu didn't do anything wrong." Sounds of discussion could be heard one after another. Jiyu Ru lowered her eyes pitifully. Old Master Gu's face was full of righteousness, as if their Jiyu family was the most powerful family in the world. At this moment, Helian Weiwei opened her mouth with an indifferent expression. "It seems that if we don't show some concrete evidence, some people won't admit that they're wrong. Sure enough, when discussing matters with the Jiyu family, we should first discuss the family's upbringing, then discuss who's the one who bullied others." As she spoke, Helian Vivian raised her finger. With a snap of her fingers, there was a loud bang. The huge television screen in the hall suddenly lit up. Elle, who was holding a long gun in one hand, and Monkey, who was holding a notebook in his left hand, stood at the connection point of the line source and made an OK gesture to Helian Vivian. "Boss, we can begin." "Begin what?" Just when everyone was puzzled, a voice suddenly rang out. After a buffer, Jiyu Ru's figure actually appeared on the screen. In an instant, everyone present looked in the direction of the screen. Chapter 1237. The location on the screen was very familiar to everyone. It was a particularly remote corner of the Bai family's courtyard today. However, the scene on the screen was not from nighttime, but from the afternoon, before the banquet started. There were two men beside Jiyu Ru. They were both wearing the uniform of receptionists, but they did not look like members of the Bai family. Instead, they looked like members of the Jiyu family. Although the video was not very clear and there was a rustling sound in the voice, one could still vaguely hear Jiyu Ru saying something to the two men. When this scene appeared, the tears in Jiyu Ru's eyes froze. She even forgot that she was still pretending to be pitiful. She was so anxious that she wanted to rush towards the power cord. Helian Vivian turned to the side to block her. Her eyes were slightly cold. "It hasn't started yet. Why are you in such a hurry, Miss Jiyu?" "Grandpa." Jiyu Ru knew that she couldn't go over, so she could only turn around and grab Old Master Gu's sleeve tightly, wanting him to help. Old Master Gu looked at Belagaju and knocked his dragon-headed walking stick heavily. His eyes were full of anger. What are you trying to do? Why is my granddaughter up there? Haven't the Gu family always been kind and honest? The smile at the corner of Belagaju's mouth was cold, and the hostility between his eyes was even more obvious. As his words fell, there seemed to be an invisible fog behind him that was surging back and forth, making it impossible for people to get close to him. The thugs of the Gu family who followed Old Master Gu still wanted to move, but just as they took a step forward, they were blocked by a black shadow that suddenly appeared in front of them. Old Master Gu could only widen his eyes angrily and say anxiously, "Belagaju. Sure, lower your voice." Bailey Jiaju put his slender fingers between his lips. His movements were elegant and devilish. Even the corners of his mouth looked like he was smiling yet not smiling. My subordinates have bad tempers. Old Master Gu is always moving around like this. I'm not sure if they will hurt you. That's right, it was not them, but them. Every man in black was transformed from the monsters that followed behind Bailey Jiaju. The Gu family's hired thugs did not know if they were hallucinating, but they felt that when those people blocked them, their eyes seemed to be suffused with a blood-red color that made them tremble all over. Bailey Shangxie looked at this scene and laughed evilly. Helian Qingchen's expression was indifferent. She only stroked Ajiu's head with her fingers and stood with her sister like that. Her eyes were cold as she looked at the Gu family. Without these distractions, Helian Vivian glanced at Monkey and the rest, indicating for them to continue. The screen pressed the play button again, and Jiu Ru's voice slowly entered everyone's ears. When you see her, think of a way to drive her away, understand? At this point, Jiu Ru paused and took out a stack of money from her wallet. She placed it in the hands of the two men. You have to be straightforward when you do this. Don't let anyone know. The two men didn't accept it at first. They seemed to be a little worried. Miss, this is the Bai family's banquet, not the Jiu family's. If we don't let her go home, will there be trouble? What trouble can there be? Jiu Ru slapped the money into their hands and smiled gently, as if she was very confident. Don't worry. You have to have a birthday invitation to enter and leave this house. She doesn't have an invitation with her, and she doesn't want to come back with us. It's normal that she can't enter the Bai family. When the time comes, no one will suspect you. They will only think that she didn't arrive. After the two men heard this, they asked, won't young Master Bai be anxious if Miss Bai doesn't appear? And old Master Bai? Today is Bai Zhen's birthday. No one will care where an adopted daughter goes. Moreover, she was originally a guest in someone else's house. You don't have to worry about this. I'll do a good job. Jiu Ru obviously didn't think this was a problem. One of the men said again, there are so many guests coming and going. What if she clamors to come in? You guys deal with this as you see fit. If she's too troublesome, find a place to lock her up first. Jiu Ru's voice sank. As long as she doesn't enter the Bai family today, you will be rewarded. When the two men heard this, they made up their minds and nodded. Yes. As soon as the three of them finished speaking, two girls entered the camera. One of them smiled and held Jiu Ru's arm. They looked very intimate, as if they didn't think that they had done something wrong. Instead, they were a little proud. Jiu Ru, your idea is still the best. To be honest, young Master Bai's sister is really too much of a hindrance. The last time we had a meal, it was the same. We were all 17 or 18 years old. We had to have some space for free love. As a junior high school student, she always followed behind young Master Bai. She didn't have any judgment at all, causing us to not even feel comfortable eating. She was either worried about this or that. Also, the last time we were in number 1 high school's cafeteria, the 3 men and 3 women could have directly made friends with each other. It was obvious that there was one more person. She didn't know her own limits at all. She even needed us to remind her to avoid it. As expected, she came from a small place. She didn't know the rules. Even after entering the Bai family, she couldn't change that uncomfortable poor aura. She didn't like to eat meat and always liked to eat vegetables. How could others accommodate her every time? Great, now that she wasn't at the birthday party, We could play to our heart's content. That's right, that's right. The other girl's face revealed a look of anticipation, even her eyes were sparkling. I heard that old Master Gu's banquet plan for the Bai family included a condition for us to play alone. We could roast meat and have fun all night. Unfortunately, the Bai family cancelled this project because they had to take care of that child. Now that the child can't even enter the house, they don't have to think about her anymore. A private celebration, just thinking about it makes me excited. Ji-Ru, you can still be with Senior Colonel Bai. The two of you, What are you thinking about? Ji-Ru's face revealed a trace of shyness and pink. Then, she chuckled and said coldly, you saw it too. I wanted to get along well with her time and time again, but this child is so insensible. She always likes to embarrass me in front of others. Since I asked her when I met her and she didn't want to come back, then I'll let her stay outside obediently. That way, she won't forget her background. Ji-Ru is right. The Bai family is too good to this child. Especially Senior Colonel Bai. Why is he so good to a foster sister? Chapter 1238. Ji-Ru listened to the words beside her ear and sneered. Then, she continued, Bai Jun is good. After today, he will stop treating her. She didn't even attend her brother's birthday party on time, and she even made so many people waste time waiting for her. How long do you think the Bai family will tolerate such an insensible child? So you're thinking. The girls understood and laughed. This is good too. In the future, Bai Jun won't take her seriously. When we go out again, no one will bother us. Then, the screen shook and the camera panned to a school cafeteria. In the bustling crowd, Ajiu was sitting upright beside a long table. She was holding a lunchbox in her hand and a little white cat on her head. The cat's tail was wagging here and there. On the screen, Ajiu opened the lunchbox and looked like she was preparing to eat. At this moment, two of the three girls looked at each other from her side. Then, they opened their mouths. Due to the noise and the fact that no one was taking the video on purpose, there was a lot of noise. Therefore, the quality of the picture was not very good. But even so, from the concentrated voices, one could still hear what they were saying to Ajiu. The meaning was nothing more than saying that this cat took up too much time and asked Ajiu to go to another table. Although Ji-Ru and the others were not very straightforward, the contempt and exclusion in their eyes were very obvious. Ajiu glanced at them and clenched her small fists. She looked like she wanted to beat them up. However, the child did not say anything in the end. She just buried her small head and hugged the lunchbox in her hand. She sat at the dining table next to them and began to feed the little white cat. For some reason, her small back view looked lonely. The three girls then started to chat and laugh. One of them even glanced at Ajiu. Then, she lowered her voice and whispered in Ji-Ru's ear, Bai Jun's sister is really an eyesore. Fortunately, at this moment, Helian Qingchen, who was wearing a school uniform, appeared in the scene. He walked to Ajiu's side. Then, Li Hailu and the others rushed towards him. Then, the girls mocked him, saying that a person like him was not worthy of eating on the second floor of the cafeteria. They told him to go back to where he came from and so on. Those words that entered his ears were too unpleasant. Some people in the hall could not help but raise their hands to cover their mouths. Their eyes were filled with shock. The commanders stared at the scene in front of them for a long time. All of them widened their eyes in shock. They had never thought that a 17-year-old girl would be so scheming. They had never thought that these well-mannered girls in front of them would be like this behind their backs. Not only did they mock and ridicule them, they even looked down on them. How did the Gu family raise such a granddaughter? In an instant, everyone in the hall turned to look at the Gu family. It's too ruthless. I really didn't expect this to be a girl's idea. If it wasn't for his brother's protection, Ajiu would have been bullied. I've already been pushed aside, okay? Wasn't it shown in the video? Those girls' faces were too ugly. Oh my god, I was speechless. Hearing the discussions around her, Ji-Ru was stunned. After a while, she said in a panic, this isn't true. This can't be real. Ji-Ru's face was pale. She wanted to defend herself, but the video was clearly displayed there. No matter how hard she tried to deny it, she could not come up with a reasonable excuse. Even her words became pale and powerless. Ji-Ru bit her lip tightly. Why was there this video? These things shouldn't exist in this world. The video is fake. These videos must be fake. Ji-Ru denied it crazily. She only wanted to turn off the screen as soon as possible. However, everyone knew what the truth was. After watching the video, the shocked old master turned to look at Ji-Ru. His eyes were filled with disbelief. His gaze towards Ji-Ru was filled with shock, disappointment, and even anger. Helian Wei stood at the side, the corners of her mouth curled up, bringing out a faint sneer. Miss Ji-Yu, before you say that the video is fake, can you please take a look at the date and source of the video? These videos were all taken from the school and the Bai family's surveillance cameras. How could they be fake? Ji-Ru's pale face froze. Helian Vivian's every word was like the sharpest needle, piercing through all her disguises. Helian Vivian looked at her indifferently. Her eyes slid past her face and landed on Old Master Ji-Yu. Old Master Ji-Yu, haven't you always said that our family is bullying others? After watching this video, I wonder if Old Master Ji-Yu will still say that our family is bullying your good granddaughter. When Old Master Ji-Yu heard this, he was extremely embarrassed. The existence of the video was like a pair of invisible hands, slapping his face until it hurt. What his precious granddaughter had done was clearly recorded on it. He didn't even dare to believe that the person who said those sarcastic words was his granddaughter, who had always been obedient and sensible. He had just said that the Ji-Yu family had always been kind to people. But in the surveillance camera, it was simply too clear how his granddaughter had bullied a little girl. Helian Vivian didn't stop. She glanced at the people present, and her tone turned cold. No matter how my daughter was born, it's not her fault that she came to the Bai family and followed Bai Zhen. Ji-Ru felt that she was an eyesore and hindered your precious granddaughter from pursuing Bai Zhen, so she came up with so many sinister tricks. It's fine if it's just to ostracize her, but she actually wanted someone to capture my daughter and lock her in a room. In order to get close to Bai Zhen, in order to make Bai Zhen hate Aju, and in order to be in the limelight at Bai Zhen's birthday party, she used such a method to deal with Aju. She clearly knew how much Aju valued Bai Zhen's birthday, yet she still did it so deliberately. Old Master Ji-Yu, this is really a good granddaughter that your Ji-Yu family has raised. Helian Vivian's last sentence was like a huge blow, causing Old Master Ji-Yu to feel as if he had been ruthlessly beaten. At this point, everyone in the hall clearly understood what was going on. They looked at the Ji-Yu family. That kind of crusading gaze made Old Master Ji-Yu wish he could find a hole to hide in. Chapter 1239. It's not like that. Listen to my explanation. It's not like that. Ji-Ru's entire body trembled slightly as she looked at the crowd in fear. She anxiously explained, and bean-sized tears fell from her face uncontrollably. She couldn't admit it. Once she admitted what she had done, her reputation would be completely ruined. I really didn't think too much at that time. Ji-Ru tugged at Old Master Gu's sleeve anxiously. Grandfather, you have to believe me. I really didn't think too much. Old Master Ji-Yu raised his head and looked at the crowd. Under so many gazes, he didn't know how to open his mouth. Helian Vivian chuckled, her eyes were a little cold. Old Master Ji-Yu, it's a pity that your granddaughter didn't learn how to act. She said that she didn't think too much. She even thought of ordering someone to kidnap a girl who wasn't even 12 years old. What else did she not dare to do? If it weren't for these videos, she wouldn't have admitted to doing all this. She even tried to mislead people and make the guests feel that our family was bullying her. This kind of scheming is not like what she said. She didn't think too much. Hearing this, Ji-Ru's face turned pale. No, it's not like that. I really just wanted Aju to have some self-awareness. I never thought of bullying her at all. I wanted her to know that a child like her isn't worthy of Bai Zhen at all. However, she's too clingy and doesn't know anything. She always follows behind Bai Zhen. I really never thought of really harming her. Ji-Ru. Helian Vivian's voice sank. I've never liked to bully the weak, But you've gone too far in pretending. It's really difficult for people to show mercy. At this point, you're still saying that you never thought of harming others. You got someone to lock Adju up for a night. Isn't this method ruthless enough? It was more than just ruthless. It was simply inhumane. People were discussing animatedly. One had to know that any kind-hearted person would not use such a method to deal with a child. This could not be said to be an unintentional mistake. It was obvious that she wanted to directly destroy Adju. Xiao Lin and Li Hailu looked at each other. Their current feelings were more complicated than anyone else's. Especially Li Hailu. He wished he could slap himself twice and then teach Jiyu Ru a lesson. If it wasn't for him, even if Bai Zhen wanted to make a deal with the Jiyu family, Jiyu Ru wouldn't have been able to do these things so easily. It was all because he was blind and couldn't see through her. He had been angry that Adju was siding with others and not them. But he never realized what had happened that day. And what the two girls said, he really couldn't believe that they were like this. Bai Zhen was worried that one of them was his girlfriend, so when he got angry that day, he left some leeway. It's my fault. Li Hailu blamed himself so much that his eyes were red. He clenched his fists tightly. If it wasn't for me, Jiyu Ru wouldn't have had the chance to come into contact with Adju. Xiao Lin narrowed his eyes and said, Hailu, now is not the time to talk about this. Since you and I are the ones who caused this, then we have to do our part to get rid of these people. We'll deal with whoever bullies Adju directly. After Xiao Lin's reminder, Li Hailu looked fiercely in the direction of Jiyu Ru and the two girls. His voice was cold. I won't let you have an easy time. The two girls' fingers trembled. The way they wanted to escape was blocked by the invisible man in black. They had never thought that such a video would exist. Why were all their words being recorded on the camera? What should they do? What should they do now? They were definitely dead. Offending Xiao Lin and Li Hailu meant that they would no longer be able to establish themselves in the circle. They could almost imagine how miserable their lives would be in the future. Even if they were from second high school, putting aside the power of the Li and Xiao families, just the influence of these two people in the hearts of the girls would make them suffer. Moreover, when they did these things and said these words, they never thought that the child would be the little princess of the Ju Wei group. How were they going to live in the future? When the two girls thought of this, they did not care anymore. They tried their best to explain and exposed Jiyu Ru. It's not our fault. It's Jiyu Ru. She was the daughter of the Jiyu family, so we could only go along with what she said. If we didn't do what she asked us to do, someone would ostracize us the next day at school. Previously, there was a girl who went against her wishes. Now, no one in the school is sitting with her for dinner. Everyone in the class treats her like a monster. Hailu, you have to believe us. We only care so much about Jiyu Ru's opinion because we don't want to become like that. We will do whatever she says. Moreover, she once vaguely mentioned that it would be great if Bai Zhen didn't have this troublesome sister by his side. She would be able to be with Bai Zhen all the time, and it would be easier for her to pursue Bai Zhen. What nonsense are you talking about? After hearing these words, Jiyu Ru couldn't help but shout. She rushed in front of the two girls and slapped the face of the girl who spoke. Her eyes were red. I've been so good to you, and you dare to treat me like this. The girl burst into tears immediately. She reached out to cover her face and shouted, Anyway, I've already offended everyone. I don't care if I offend you or not. If you weren't the daughter of the Jiyu family, how many people do you think will accompany you? You. Jiyu Ru reached out and pounced on the girl again. No one cared about them. The two of them instantly pulled each other into a ball. Their hair was tugging at each other's hair. There was no sign of their usual gentleness. Instead, it was like a dog-eat-dog situation. Even old Master Gu's eyes were filled with shock when he saw this scene, let alone the others. The people at the scene no longer spoke up for Jiyu Ru. Instead, the disgust in their eyes was so obvious. Jiyu Cheng stood at the side and clenched his hands tightly. After the video was released, he knew that the Jiyu family was finished this time. When he found out, he thought that even if his cousin liked Bai Zhen and did some tricks, she wouldn't have such a bottom line. However, after seeing those scenes, even he felt an indescribable anger in his chest. He knew very well what kind of person the little Bin was. His cousin actually used such a method to deal with her. Moreover, she was just a child. Chapter 1240. The tearing sounds in the hall grew louder and louder. Seeing this scene, Ajiu's big round eyes turned around. Her small face was very serious as she said to Helian Qingchen, who was standing beside her, "Second brother, watching them hurt each other like this is even better than me beating them up myself." Helian Qingchen tilted her head and smiled. She lowered her voice and said, "This is all father's idea. I have to learn from him in the future." Ajiu nodded her head as she spoke. The kitten on her head shook its tail with her movements. Of course, old Master Jiyu would not allow his granddaughter to continue to embarrass herself like this. With a stiff expression, he instructed the people beside him, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pull Miss away." The Jiyu family's thugs did want to pull her away, but they were still being stared at by the men in black. Just the look in their eyes was terrifying. It was as if the ones looking at them were not humans, but some other unknown creature. The Jiyu family's thugs were so scared that they did not dare to move. Seeing this, old Master Jiyu became even more anxious. He walked over with his walking stick and wanted to pull his granddaughter away personally. However, when Jiyu Ru raised her hand, she touched his eyes. There was a loud bang. Old Master Gu's walking stick loosened. If Jiyu Cheng had not reacted quickly and dragged him from behind, old Master Gu's old life would have been over here. Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. Old Master Jiyu felt a burning pain in his eyes. He knew that everyone here was looking at them, looking at the Jiyu family as if they were watching a farce. It might not be so embarrassing if it was just scheming against others, but what was this now? The granddaughter that he had carefully raised and praised every time she met actually flew into a rage in public like a shrew. And the things that were mentioned in the video, every single one of them made old Master Jiyu want to leave immediately. Seeing old Master Jiyu like this, Jiyu Cheng reached out and grabbed Jiyu Ru's wrist. Jiyu Ru was still struggling, shouting, "Jiyu Cheng, let go of me. I'm going to teach this traitor a lesson." As she spoke, she kept kicking her feet as if she wanted to kill the other party. Jiyu Cheng was furious and pulled her over. The young man's voice was very deep at this moment. "Enough. Wake up and see what kind of situation this is." After hearing Jiyu Cheng's words, Jiyu Ru finally realized that she was still at Baizhen's birthday party. She panicked and looked to her side. She saw that everyone present was looking at her as if she was trash. The disgust in their eyes was so obvious. Only then did she realize what she had done in front of everyone. I didn't do it on purpose." Jiyu Ru's voice became weak again. Her beautiful black hair had also become messy. Her exquisite makeup had also changed because of the scuffle just now. The lip gloss that she had applied was also all smudged. Originally, girls relied on 70% of their appearance. Now, Jiyu Ru's temperament was completely gone. How could she still look like a rich daughter? Therefore, no matter how pitiful she pretended to be, it looked like she was putting on an act. Jiyu Ru herself did not realize it. She pointed her finger at the girl who had been torn apart by her. "It's all her fault. She's slandering me." "Slandering?" The girl sneered. Half of her eyelashes had fallen off. She did not look much better. She was sharp-tongued. "What you said before is all in our WeChat group. There are all the chat records there. Are you only willing to admit it after I send the chat records to everyone?" "Miss Jiyu." Jiyu Ru's face turned green as if she was angered by her words again. Her fingers trembled as if she was about to pounce on her again. Jiyu Cheng waved his long arm and stopped her. Jiyu Ru cried. At this point, it seemed that all she had left was crying. Helian Wei's gaze was indifferent as she watched this scene unfold. The corners of her mouth slowly curled up. "Old Master Jiyu, look, no matter how much you deny it, your granddaughter has already started to fight amongst herself." Old Master Gu's left eye had already turned green because of Jiyu Ru's bump. He seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. The white hair on his forehead was messy and even his back was bent. Where was the domineering aura he had just now? He first glanced at Hellion Vivian and opened his mouth, but he could not bring himself to do so. But this matter had to be settled. If this continued, the Gu family would only be even more embarrassed. Thus, he turned his head and looked at his good friend of many years, Old Master Bai. Old Bai, look at my Rua now. She also knows that she was wrong. She's not a child with a bad heart. I didn't notice. She said before that the Zhen boy was too difficult to get close to. She had never liked a boy so much. As her grandfather, I was worried for her. For the Zhen boy, she had done too many things that she wouldn't have done. Including everything she is doing now, it's all because she wants to pursue the Zhen boy. The more Old Master Jiyu spoke, the lower his voice became. Can you say something for Ru-er on account of our many years of relationship? Your Bai family raised Aju. The people of Ju Wei Corporation will definitely listen to what you say. Aju can make us apologize however she wants. But can Ru-er leave some face for her? After all, she's still a child. She did something wrong in a moment of impulse. Fortunately, Aju didn't suffer any harm. Why don't we? Bang! Old Master Jiyu had not finished his words. He heard a sharp gust of wind suddenly sweep past his ears. It was fierce. What flew past his ear was not something else, but a transparent goblet. The goblet flew to the wall behind Old Master Jiyu. Then, it fell to the ground and turned into pieces of debris. The water gradually splashed onto Old Master Gu's face. This made him unable to recover for a long time. It was obvious that he was frightened by this sudden sound. When he turned around with pale lips, he saw Bai Zhen standing tall and straight. Because the goblet in his hand was gone, he was particularly eye-catching. The pure white suit gave people a sharp and vicious aura. His handsome face was even colder at that moment. Chapter 1241. Bai Zhen. Jiyu Ru's red and haggard eyes slowly widened. She did not expect Bai Zhen to actually attack her grandfather. Old Master Gu's face was also filled with shock and disbelief. However, Bai Zhen only stared at him. He was like a poisonous giant snake that was spitting its tongue at him. The surrounding wind kept pouring in from the half-open window and blowing on Bai Zhen's face. No one knew how much pain his heart felt when he heard those words and saw those videos. His chest felt as if it had been pierced by a blade. It was so painful that almost all his internal organs were cold. His throat felt as if there was a ball of fire burning. Bai Zhen knew that this time, his pain had nothing to do with the cold. His heart ached. When everything Jiyu Ru had done was exposed in front of him, his heart felt as if it had been placed on a fire of anger. Inch by inch, he had nowhere to put it. Bai Zhen had never thought that the child he had carefully protected for so many years would one day be bullied like this. Moreover, the reason why those people dealt with her and mocked her was all because of him. When these people were talking, he was clearly in the cafeteria, but he did not notice anything. What was he doing at that time? He was actually afraid that Aju would like someone else and want to leave him after knowing his thoughts, so he tried his best to restrain his feelings and told himself to stay away from her. From there, he showed an unprecedented indifference, so much so that Aju was actually ostracized when she was less than 2 meters away from him. The feeling in his heart was no longer as simple as just feeling uncomfortable. If this still caused Aju to be hurt, then what was the point of him enduring everything for a long time to deal with those businessmen? Everything he did was to make Aju not do anything. As long as she was responsible for being happy, she would continue to be happy. Now that he thought about it, Aju must have sensed his deliberate alienation back then. That was why she did not say anything at that time. She silently took the lunchbox and moved to another table. Bai Zhen no longer knew how to express his feelings, as if he had been drenched in snow. His hands could not help but clench involuntarily. Because he used too much force, his nails sank into his flesh. However, at this moment, Bai Zhen seemed to not feel any pain at all. He only looked at Jiyu Ru coldly and said word by word, "If killing is not against the law, I really want to shoot you to death." Jiyu Ru was shocked. Then, even her lips turned pale and colorless. She had thought about the consequences if Bai Zhen found out what she had done, But none of them were things that Baizhan would disregard the friendship between the two families and completely fall out with her like this. Does he not want that contract anymore? Jiyu Ru's thoughts were always the same. She thought that she was the one who understood Baizhan the best. In fact, those contracts were nothing to Baizhan. If there was no Ajiu, if it wasn't for Ajiu, Baizhan would not be so modest to the Jiyu family. Baizhan, what are you doing? Old Master Jiyu stood in front of his granddaughter. Even a judge has to give people a chance to turn over a new leaf. Baizhan, you should know who Ru'er became like this for. Baizhan raised his eyes. I've never said that I had a good impression of her. When she came to me, I had already rejected her very clearly. But your Jiyu family actually thinks that it's okay to bully Ajiu like this. You even want to use the Bai family's kindness to pressure others. What do you mean that Ajiu was not hurt anyway? I'm not even willing to let her touch a single needle. What did your Jiyu family do? Sow discord. Ostracize. You even want Ajiu to not be able to enter the house. You want me to save face for your granddaughter, then who will save face for our Ajiu? At this point, Baizhan's eyes darkened bit by bit. Grandpa Jiyu, I'm calling you Grandpa Jiyu now because of my grandfather. You don't have to think about using my grandfather to avoid the punishment you deserve. From the moment the matter was exposed until now, Jiyu Ru first pretended to be pitiful and denied what she had done. She said that it was the Ju Wei group who was bullying her because of their big business. When the video came out later, she said that she had never thought of framing Ajiu. Did she really want someone to upload the chat record so that they would learn what it meant to obediently admit their mistakes? Since you don't even have the right attitude to apologize, then don't blame our Bai family for not taking into account our old friendship. I know very well what the Jiyu family did when they were doing business. Perhaps those things are nothing overseas, but this is China. Grandpa Jiyu, I'll definitely make your Jiyu family lose everything. Baizhan, you can't do this. Jiyu Ru cried even harder. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to the Jiyu family. Baizhan sneered. That youthful and handsome face was no longer as indifferent as before. Instead, for the first time, there was a terrifying anger. Why can't I do this to your Jiyu family? I've already warned you to stop. I didn't expect you to be even more heartless than I thought. I like you. I like you. Jiyu Ru looked at Baizhan with her beautiful eyes. She cried so pitifully, as if she wanted Baizhan to feel a little compassion. How can you be so ruthless to someone who likes you? Baizhan looked down at her and said solemnly, because you were ruthless to the person I like first. Jiyu Ru suddenly paused, and even her voice was completely blocked by Baizhan's word. His words were like the second bomb of tonight's birthday banquet. They were thrown into the spacious hall, triggering countless chain reactions. Everyone was stunned, as if they couldn't believe what they had heard. They all looked at each other in dismay. The person that Baizhan said that he liked was his sister, Ajiu. Even Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows in surprise. Bailey Shangxie, on the other hand, narrowed his pair of sinister and beautiful eyes. His voice was extremely cold as he said, "He better not mean what I think he meant just now. If it was, he would break his legs and throw him into the demon world to feed the demons. Ajiu was their family, okay? What like? Destroy." Hellion Qingchen didn't need to think to know what her brother was thinking. She could only raise her head and look at the ceiling. She thought to herself that what he said was exactly what she thought. Bailey Shangxie immediately turned his head and exchanged a tacit look with his father. Beligaju gave him an indifferent look. Bailey Shangxie's thin lips curled up evilly. Then he moved his wrists left and right, as if he was ready to beat someone up with actual combat. Chapter 1242. Hellion Vivian looked at the father and son on her side and helplessly held her forehead with her fingers. Only at this time would the two of them have a tacit understanding. Usually, they did not see eye to eye with each other, but when it was not time to form a group, they started to form a group. But that child said she liked him. Hellion Vivian's eyes landed on Baizhan. She suddenly remembered the email her daughter had sent her before. Although the words used in the email were vague, There was indeed a hint of love in the words. She even asked Buddha to explain it to her. Her Ajiu was still too naive. Didn't she know that Buddha had never cared about such things? Now it seemed that her Ajiu was not in a one-sided love. However, it was really too early to settle down before the age of 12. Although she had also settled down with His Highness when she was about the same age, Ajiu was different. Her daughter probably did not look at looks like she did. Her daughter used to be very ignorant. She even said that she wanted to be a temple abbot and was very serious about it. Helene Vivian had always thought that her daughter was a career type. How could she be confessed to in public just like that? She did not think much of it. Her daughter being liked meant that her daughter was outstanding. After all, she had always been at ease with the Bai family's character. It was just that the father and son pair knew that someone liked their daughter. Their reaction would definitely not be too friendly. Helene Vivian thought for a moment and still felt that it was appropriate to help the Bai family's boy. She could not let His Highness and the others beat him up, right? After all, His Highness's punch was not something that anyone could withstand. It could really cut a hole in the ground. Most importantly, Helene Vivian reacted at that moment. She felt that there were not many people who had the guts like Bai Zhen in the future. It was not like the father and son pair would beat up whoever chased after Ajiu, right? What if they beat away all the suitors? This was really a problem. Therefore, after Helene Vivian struggled for a while, she turned her body to block Beligaju's way. After Beligaju saw a certain someone's actions, a faint smile flashed across his deep eyes. Then, he reached out and pulled her over. His voice was low and pleasant. "Don't worry, I won't do it." "Seriously?" Helene Vivian raised her eyebrows to confirm, in order to avoid not ending up in a mess later. Beligaju nodded. Just when Helene Vivian felt that she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. His Highness continued, "In any case, Shangxie was the one who wanted to make a move." Helene Vivian. As the person being confessed to, Ajiu's almond-shaped eyes, which were originally round, were now even bigger and brighter. She stood there in a daze, as if she could not believe what she had heard. The 2 strands of hair on her head were still standing up, and her small face was exquisite and beautiful. She blinked her eyes again and again. So, the person that little brother liked was not Jiyu Ru, but her? Li Hailu's eyes widened because of this sudden news. He was in a daze. He was really not online at all. Master Bai said that he likes Ajiu. "I really admire your EQ. I can't believe you were able to figure it out," Xiao Lin said lightly. Li Hailu was very proud. "That's because I'm very smart, okay?" Xiao Lin. Smart. Hee. However, Bai Zhen finally could not hold it in anymore. His family had already found him. If he did not confess, Ajiu would leave, right? Old Master Jiyu was also shocked. His gaze followed Ajiu's direction and swept across her fair wrist. His back suddenly trembled. Then, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Bai Zhen with flickering eyes. You agreed to my condition because of her?" "Yes." Bai Zhen did not look at Old Master Jiyu again. All his attention was now on Ajiu. He was looking at her expression. Perhaps it was too early to say that she liked him for a girl who was not even 12 years old. But he really could not hold it in anymore. However, when this moment came, Bai Zhen still felt that he had stepped into a bottomless abyss with one foot. It was more than a bottomless abyss. If Ajiu hated him because of this and treated him as a pervert, what should he do? Bai Zhen bent his pale fingers. The blood-colored crescent moon in his palm had already begun to bleed. However, there was not the slightest change in emotion on his face. His eyes were so deep as he stared at Ajiu. There was a gentleness in his eyes that everyone could feel. Jiyu Cheng watched from the side and clenched his fingers. But now, he realized that he could only watch like this. After all the things that the Jiyu family had done to the little bean. So what if he sensed the strangeness in his heart? Although the 2 of them were very far away, the little bean had always thought of her little brother for everything. As for Bai Zhen, he finally knew why his cousin had such great hostility towards Ajiu. Bai Zhen never hid the way he looked at Ajiu. It was an expression that was so gentle that the corners of his mouth would smile. Everyone knew what that was. He used to think that it was because his brother doted on his sister too much. But now, Ji Cheng lowered his eyes and his fingers drooped down. Old Master Ji also began to be afraid. He looked at Old Master Bai again, but he did not expect that this time, he would not say anything. Old Master Bai opened his mouth to interrupt him. His voice was so deep that it was like the medal on his shoulder. Old Ji, our relationship is our relationship. I really can't believe that what you said just now came out of your mouth. If the younger generation made a mistake, just let them admit it. But you are obviously biased. Old Ji, she is either your granddaughter or your granddaughter. No matter whose child Ajiu is, she is a member of the Bai family and my granddaughter. You always said that you wanted me to take into account our old relationship and your granddaughter's face. Our Ajiu doesn't like to eat meat. These few days, the food at home has been turned into meat dishes because of you. The child hasn't said a single word. She has always been sensible. After coming to the Bai family, she is like the happy fruit of the Bai family. Bai Zhen had lost his parents since he was young and could not get close to anyone. With her around, the Bai family gradually became like a family. Only then did my grandson change. If you want me to plead for you, then who will plead for the injustice of my granddaughter? When old Master Ji heard this, his face turned completely pale. If even Bai Huai did not help him, then Bai Zhen would really have no scruples when he acted. The business information of the Ji family that he mentioned would be dug out by him. In other words, other than the Ju Wei group, even the Bai family had openly become enemies with them. Then the Ji family, would they still have a way out? Chapter 1243. Ji Ru panicked as well. Her fingers tugged at old Master Bai's sleeve. Grandfather Bai, you can't not help us. Don't you also think that I'm very filial to you? Our Ji family and the Bai family have had a relationship for so many years. How can we ruin it like this? Grandfather Bai, it's obvious that a person like you has a motive for being filial. Bai Huai's gaze was as straight as his identity. Wei Wei is right. I really can't treat you like a child anymore. At this point, you still want to use your relationship to pressure me. Just take it that I, Bai Huai, don't care about our old friendship. I want to avenge my granddaughter. From the beginning to the end, old Master Bai did not come to denounce the Ji family because Ajiu was the little princess of the Ju Wei group. In the old man's heart, the matter was very simple. The video was so clear. He just wanted to seek justice for the child raised by the Bai family. Adjutant Zhong, what are you still standing there for? Throw out all these people who affect the birthday party. Old Master Bai had always been a swift and decisive person. Now that he saw Ji Ru being so clingy, he directly gave an order to the person beside him. I, Bai Huai, am not afraid of others saying that I am bullying others. Everyone is looking at the truth. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Adjutant Zhong's execution was also very strong. He pulled Ji Ru up with one hand. His strength was very strong. She actually bullied their young lady. Did she really think that she was the young madam of the Bai family? She was in charge of everything there. Adjutant Zhong had tolerated Ji Ru for a long time. This time, he finally exploded. Not only Ji Ru, but even Ji Cheng, old Master Ji, and the two girls were all uncivilly invited out of the Bai family's birthday party. As for how they would deal with the Ji family in the future, they would not let them have an easy time. Just in front of them, the two girls who were bragging to their classmates about how luxurious and fun the Bai family's banquet was were completely listless. What was even more dumbfounded was that no one knew who was so mean as to call the students of number 1 high school and number 2 high school to watch outside the military compound. Of course, it was not easy to gather so many people in such a short period of time and at night. Every single one of those students seemed to be members of Bailey Shangxia's support team. There were already people who knew Ji Ru and the others. Now that they saw the two girls being chased out in such a sorry state, they were stunned for a moment before they all burst into laughter. These two people were so arrogant in class at that time. They wanted to suppress everyone they met. As for Ji-Ru, they did not take them seriously at all. When they received the invitation to the Bai family's banquet, they even deliberately made a circle around each class, afraid that others would not know their relationship with the school hunk Bai. Now, he was chased out. There was really no news that could make people happier than this news. The two girls also realized how embarrassing their current situation was. One after another, they covered their faces and screamed while rubbing against the wall to get off the bus. However, they knew very well that this was only the beginning. The Ji-Yu family was even more humiliated. Whether it was the business world or the political and military world, everyone knew what Ji-Ru had done on this day. The business world would never work with the Ji-Yu family again, regardless of whether they were after profits or not. They could not afford to offend the Ju Wei group. After all, once a certain highness made a move, it was the rhythm of completely bankrupting a certain company. As for the political and military world, everyone had been chased out by the Bai family. The situation could not be any clearer. The scene of the military compound was also synchronized to the screen. Only then did the guests present know what Ji-Ru and the other children were really like in the eyes of their classmates in school. They could not help but sigh again. However, Hellion Vivian looked at those girls and raised an eyebrow at her son. "Did you call them here?" "No, I never use my fans." Bailey Shangxie paused for a moment, his eyes flashed. "It's father. No wonder the manager contacted him. So it was to release the news of me. How shameless, too shameless." "Indeed." Hellion Vivian laughed, but the shamelessness was wonderful. Could it be that someone had been planning to deal with the Ji-Yu family at the birthday banquet since a long time ago? That was why he had been so calm and collected the entire time. After all, he was the one who told her that the purple jade Buddha head was in the Bai family. Then why didn't a certain highness take it at that time? Even if he couldn't touch it, he could have asked any mortal to help, right? Thinking of this, Hellion Vivian felt that everything was planned, so Hellion Vivian couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Hey, have you been planning to deal with the Ji-Yu family since the beginning?" Unexpectedly, Beligaju only turned his face and glanced at her indifferently. He put one hand in his trouser pocket and raised his eyebrows. "Do I need a plan to deal with them?" "Hellion Vivian. Don't be like this. No matter what, the Ji-Yu family is a listed multinational company worth hundreds of millions. If others heard such a disdainful tone, they would definitely have the urge to beat up a certain highness. However, without a plan, he could torture people until they were skinned. As expected of someone who had fully displayed the essence of a demon. Some people, compared to losing their lives, what they cared more about was their reputation. This time, the Ji-Yu family would probably suffer a fate worse than death. However, at this time, people no longer cared about what would happen to the Ji-Yu family in the future. All their attention was on the two children, Baizhan and Ajiu. Although Ajiu was still Baizhan's sister in name, Baizhan was also Ajiu's adopter. But in reality, the two of them were not related by blood. Then, it would not be too unacceptable for Baizhan to like Ajiu. However, Bailey Shangxie knew very well how to obstruct feelings, especially his own sister. He took a step forward. The pure black diamond earring on his left ear flickered with an evil luster as he walked. His silver hair was messy, and there were many black ropes wrapped around his wrists. His entire person gave off the feeling of a blood-sucking noble. He walked in front of Baizhan and stood still. Then, he curled his lips into a smile. His voice sounded very bewitching and pleasant. No wonder his records were sold again and again. "Baizhan, right? Our family is here this time not only to thank and celebrate your birthday, but also to talk about something that my brother just said. We are going to take Ajiu home." Chapter 1244. Hearing this, Baizhan's black pupils suddenly shook. Even his slender figure seemed to have been stimulated by something. He paused heavily and looked at Bailey Shangxie in disbelief. Bailey Shangxie still had a smile on the corner of his mouth, which seemed to have a hint of evil charm. Li Hailu and Xiao Lin could not believe what they had heard. Their faces were filled with shock as they looked at each other. They thought to themselves that they were in trouble this time. If Ajiu was taken away just like that. What about Master Bai? He would definitely go crazy. Both of them knew that to Bai Zhen, Ajiu was equivalent to a child that he had raised since she was young. Although Li Hailu did not know that Bai Zhen liked Ajiu before, he also knew how many things Bai Zhen had planned for Ajiu. This included where Ajiu would go to school next. It was best to find a place that was closer to the army. Even if Bai Zhen joined the army, he could still apply for leave to look after Ajiu. Also, Ajiu wanted to be the abbot of a temple in the future. Bai Zhen also started to make investments from business. It was to help Ajiu realize her wish. This was something that he would never do in the past. It was actually not easy to do these things. It was only Bai Zhen who did not have any personal entertainment. He put all his thoughts and future plans on Ajiu. Bai Zhen would definitely not be able to take it if he suddenly took Ajiu away. Old Master Bai also understood his grandson's thoughts, so after hearing Bailey Shangxie's words, he also frowned. But since her biological parents had come to pick her up, he could not refuse to let them pick her up, right? Moreover, Ajiu had been looking forward to a family reunion since she was young. Although Old Master Bai was reluctant, he did not say anything in the end. He only let out a deep sigh. Bai Zhen moved his fingers with difficulty. Only he knew how uncomfortable the astringent pain that surged out of his throat was. Bailey Shangxie chuckled and continued, Arju was born with the fate of Buddha. She is at odds with our family and can't stand the chaos of the secular world. So when she was still in my mother's womb, an eminent monk came to my house and said that she had found a few fated people. Those fated people were in the temple. Although the old monk made it sound nice, I thought about it later. You must have had some problems in your heart at that time. That old monk needed my sister's Buddhist aura to solve the knot in your heart. In other words, Ajiu has met you before. You might not remember. At that time, you were also in the temple. After Bailey Shangxie mentioned it, Bai Zhen suddenly recalled the scene when he was cultivating. Auntie, are you pregnant? In his memory, when he had just lost his parents, he had asked an auntie this question. That auntie was very beautiful. Even though she was pregnant, she gave off an aura that made people want to get close to her. Most importantly, he was really bored at that time. That's right, he was bored. No matter how his master tried to enlighten him, he still didn't seem to be interested in anything. It wasn't until that auntie appeared that he wanted to test if it was really like what people said. Every child was a gift from God to people. He remembered that he even touched that auntie's stomach at that time. He even despised that the little baby was very stupid and didn't even know how to move. In the end, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a throbbing in the palm of his hand. It was very weak, but it was real. It was that beat that made him feel that he was still alive. The feeling of blood flowing through his palms was really hard to describe. He had once wondered in the temple when that auntie would come again. Had her baby been born? If she came again, he would definitely say a few more words to her baby. However, the heavens did not let him do as he wished. Ever since that day, his master told him that the knot in his heart had been untied and that he could go down the mountain. He did not know what knot he had in his heart. However, since his master had said so, he never felt that he needed to stay in the temple. His grandfather was very happy to hear that he had no knot in his heart. He still remembered that when he left the temple, he still regretted not seeing that auntie who was pregnant with the baby again. Later on, after he went down the mountain, he gradually forgot about this matter. At that time, he had Li Hailu, Xiao Lin, and the others. He did some evil things in the courtyard all day long and had long forgotten about the meetings in the temple. Just like that, a few years passed, and his memories were recalled again. When Bai Zhen looked at Ajiu again, his mood was even more difficult to describe with words. He had clearly been thinking about what that child would look like when it was born. When the time came, if he saw that auntie again, he would definitely see that baby. Now, the image of that soft and cute little monk walking towards him with a serious expression when he went up the mountain to pick her up appeared in Bai Zhen's mind. At that time, he was thinking about how much this little monk could eat. It was not enough to hold a steamed bun in both hands, she still had to hold it in her mouth. However, it was undeniable that his heart softened toward such a Aju. He did not know if this was love at first sight. But at that moment, he decided that he had to treat this child well. He really did not expect that Aju was the little baby that he had wanted to touch again and again. Aju's big round eyes were also blinking as she looked at Baizhan fixedly. "It's her." Baizhan could not help but mutter in a low voice. Bailey Shangxie chuckled and said, "That's right, it's her. Originally, according to Aju's fate, we had to wait until the cycle of the 12 zodiac signs was over. In other words, after she was 12 years old, we could only come and pick her up. I still have to thank you. If it weren't for the purple jade Buddha head that you fought for Aju, we would have had to wait for more than a month before we could make a move. At that time, Aju might have been bullied to no end. After all, there seemed to always be girls like Jiu Ru by your side. When Aju was just brought to the Bai family, she seemed to have been treated similarly. I originally thought that that was the last time, but I didn't expect that there would still be other people around." Baizhan's pupils constricted again, and his fingers clenched again. He had to admit that Bailey Shangxie's words hit the spot that he cared about the most and could not refute the most. Bailey Shangxie took a step forward and tilted his body slightly. He lowered his voice beside his ear, with an indescribable provocation. "You said that you like Aju and want to protect her well? Even you are not strong and mature enough. How are you going to protect her? Is that how you protect her? You can find an excuse to say that you did not notice and did not know the cause and process, but it is a fact that Aju was isolated." Chapter 1245. When Baizhan heard this, his fingers tightened even more. He turned to the side and looked at Bailey Shangxie with his cold eyes. His voice was deep. "It won't happen again in the future." He was so calm and firm like a young man. He was actually able to resist the demonic aura emitted by Bailey Shangxie's body. This made Bailey Shangxie raise his eyebrows in surprise. His black eyes gradually turned into an evil amber color. No wonder Aju was immune to all evil when she followed him. He was probably the only one in the world who had such a righteous aura. If he had not crossed the border of life and death, he would not have formed such an aura. In addition to Baizhan's background and his upbringing since he was young, he had become who he was now. Bailey Shangxie ignored his words. It was as if he was going to hand over his sister. He stood up straight and smiled politely. It was impossible to tell that he had just provoked Baizhan when he turned to the side. "All these years, I'm really grateful to the Bai family for raising Aju." As he spoke, he looked at Old Master Bai again. "Especially thank you, Grandpa Bai. I often heard my mother say that Grandpa Bai is a forthright and narrow-minded person. He has the demeanor of an ancient general. Now that I've seen him, it's true." Others did not understand what a knot in the heart was, but Old Master Bai understood it very well. Back then, he had spent a lot of effort, but he still could not pull Baizhan back from that accident. He had seen a psychiatrist and an old friend. In the end, he could only hand it over to the eminent monk. The eminent monk had once told him that his grandson had a very deep heart and wanted to wait for the true Buddha. However, at that time, the eminent monk had also said that the true Buddha could not wait, and it also depended on luck. He was not sure if there would be a day when he could wait. When Old Master Bai decided to send Baizhan to the temple, he was also in the mood to give it a try. No one could understand how much an old man owed this child. As a soldier, he should indeed sacrifice to protect the majority of people. But what about the child who stayed behind? At that time, any concern for Baizhan was a replay of the harm. On the day of the funeral, Old Master Bai saw his grandson's finger being cut, but he did not feel any pain. This old general who had guarded the country for many years cried. Even if there was only the slightest possibility, he had to try. Now that he heard Bailey Shangxie say that Aju was the person who had solved the knot in Baizhan's heart, one could imagine how Old Master Bai felt. 9. When Old Master Bai spoke, his voice was a little hoarse. "You are indeed the blessing that your little brother has accumulated in this lifetime. Our Bai family's little happy fruit." After hearing this, Aju walked over with the little white cat in her hand. With a serious expression on her face, she said, "It's my fortune to be able to enter the Bai family. Adju is right." Helian Vivian chuckled and put her hand on her daughter's head. Bai Zhan's righteousness has protected Adju for 8 years. Chief Bai also treats Adju as his own daughter. We will always remember this kindness. At this point, she glanced at Bailey Shangxie. Bailey Shangxie, this superstar devil, only listened to 3 people in this world: his mother, his younger brother, and his younger sister. Now that Helian Vivian had spoken, he naturally put away the demonic energy on his body and stood beside Helian Qingchen for the time being. Bai Zhan's eyes looked at the approaching Adju. Old Master Bai naturally knew his grandson's mood. He patted Bai Zhan's shoulder and comforted him. "It's good that Adju was taken away. You will go to the army as soon as summer arrives. When that time comes, I will also return to the border. Who will take care of Adju?" Helian Vivian also looked over. "Bai Zhan, you are still too young. There are too many uncertain factors around you. I have always been sure of what I want." Bai Zhan couldn't help but interrupt Helian Vivian. For the first time, this youth revealed a yearning look. Helian Vivian chuckled and said, "Yes, but when we are young, we always have a lot of scruples. Bai Zhan, you have something to do. Today is your 18th birthday. After you turn 18, you will be an adult. I have always admired the Bai family's way of protecting the country. I believe that this kind of magnanimous and awe-inspiring blood also flows in your body. When you are mature enough to resist everyone, wouldn't it be better to talk about love? Or could it be that you can't wait until then? Can't you control yourself?" This was a provocation. Although Bai Zhan was very clear, he was even more clear that every word Helian Vivian said was right. "I can control myself." Bai Zhan looked straight at Helian Vivian, neither servile nor overbearing. Helian Vivian smiled. "Very good. After the birthday party is over, I will pick Adju up first. We will meet again when you grow up." Bai Zhan clenched his hands tightly and finally let go. His voice was slow, but as clear as ink. "Okay." In the past, when he was studying, Haruki Murakami had said, "You have to be a calm adult. You are not allowed to be emotional, not allowed to secretly miss, not allowed to look back, and live your own life. You have to be obedient. Not all fish will live in the same sea." Growing up meant that he had to think more. Even though he was in great pain this time, he agreed willingly. So many things were being told to him. He was not strong enough. The strong ones were the Bai family, not him. That was why he had to be careful before doing anything. The Jiyu family was the best example. He did not want his girl to get hurt again. If all of this could only be done with power, then he would work hard to do it. Thinking of this, Bai Zhan raised his head and answered, "Okay." Everyone listened at the side and laughed. Seeing the two families like this, they were naturally in a good mood. Are they going to have a child betrothal? Bai Zhan, this kid, still fell into the hands of someone else in the end. Sigh. These two children are really a good match, especially Adju. She makes people happy just by looking at her. Little silly girl. Adju is still young. It might not be in the future. Just as people said, there were too many uncertainties in the future. Even now, Bai Zhan knew very well that Adju might not even know what she liked. In the few years that they were separated, she would definitely meet many, many people. If there was someone who treated her better than him, what should he do? Even if there was this kind of panic. However, Bai Zhan did not change his answer. He had to be able to protect her in the future. Even if this process was very long. He was also willing. The atmosphere at the scene became lively again. Everyone raised their wine glasses and joked with Old Master Bai. Although Bailey Shangxie, as her brother, did not say anything, he began to plan in his heart how to destroy the reunion between Adju and Bai Zhan when the time came. Helian Qingchen really understood her brother the best. She reached out and pulled him over by the back of his collar. She also wanted to give Adju some space to say goodbye. Chapter 1246. Bailey Shangxie listened to his younger brother. Moreover, He had not seen Helian Qingchen for so many days, so he was extremely obedient. As a brother Con, he knew very well when to do what. Of course, the only way for Bailey Shangxie to treat his younger brother well was to give him diamonds. I dug out 2 pieces from the demon world and 1 from Portugal. Which one do you like? Helian Qingchen took it and looked at it on her fingertips. Not bad. Where's the one for Ajiu? Bailey Shangxie took out a large handful of mermaid tears from his pocket. Each of them was priceless. I brought father to the other side. Many mermaids were scared to tears by him. I picked up a lot along the way. Helian Qingchen thought to herself, father still has this effect now. Although Ajiu did not know what her 2 brothers were talking about, it sounded like they wanted to give her something. Only then did she suddenly remember something and ran in front of Baizhan. When Baizhan saw her actions, he paused for a moment. He did not expect her to grab his hand. Little brother, I have a birthday present for you. I tied it outside the door. I was afraid that it would bite people randomly, so I suppressed it with force. As Ajiu spoke, she pulled Baizhan out. She panted like a little tiger that had not grown up yet. Even though she already had the appearance of a young girl, she was still a child. She might not understand what his confession meant at all. After all, even if she liked someone, there were many kinds of feelings. Baizhan held her wrist and tightened his grip slightly. There was an indescribable sour feeling in his heart. After a long while, he took a deep breath and did not say anything. Instead, he continued to let her hold his hand. At the very least, she did not hate him and completely ignore him, right? Baizhan told her this, but he still could not help but ask, liking someone is different from liking someone, right? Huh. Ajiu raised her head in confusion and looked at Baizhan's face in the fog. However, in the white fog, she did not see anything other than his outline. Baizhan did not continue this topic. Instead, he laughed softly. Where is the gift you want to give me? It's right in front. Ajiu continued to pull Baizhan forward. This time, Bailey Shangxie didn't ruin it. After all, there would be plenty of chances to ruin it in the future. If he showed his impolite side in front of his sister, it wouldn't be worth it. Xiao Lin and Li Hailu did not follow him because they knew that if Ajiu really wanted to leave, this might be the last night Lord Bai could stay with her. The military compound was quiet in winter. Amidst the boundless snow, the 2 of them, one deep and one shallow, tread on the snow as they made their way to the wall. Over there. Ajiu pointed at a lump of white in the darkness. She let go of Baizhan's hand and ran over. When Baizhan saw that huge creature, his black eyes were slightly stunned. That was Alaska. Didn't you want a large dog before? Ajiu picked up Alaska's head. Little Ala is not bad. Its teeth are a little sharp, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't dare to bite people in front of me. Alaska was about to faint from the shaking. Come on, why did this little girl look so cute and fight so fiercely? And what was the background of her brother? This youth in front of it was more normal. If it had to choose a master, it would choose this youth. Woof woof woof. Alaska barked softly and kept using its head to gently touch Baizhan's long legs. Its look of begging for adoption was simply too pitiful. Baizhan also understood Ajiu. He knew that she did not have the strength to wear Alaska's heavy rings. No dog could withstand it, even if it was a large dog. However, Ajiu did not know it herself. She was still expressing her opinion with a serious expression. The 2 strands of hair on her head stood up. Little brother, it seems that little Ala really likes you. When it sees me, it is never like this. It only knows how to play with me. If I don't play with it, it will be unhappy. Alaska was speechless. Do you think my desperate struggle is all for fun, boss? I am clearly using my life to escape, okay? Baizhan looked at the man and dog in front of him and suddenly smiled. It was gentle and cold to the bone. He was wearing a pure white windbreaker. He had black hair and red lips. His skin was as white as jade. His thin lips were slightly raised. He was very good-looking. He was the one who thought too much about things. Ajiu was originally like this. Her thoughts were different from others. To be good to a person, it took all her strength. She was still in a daze. He just had to wait for her to understand. Even if she did not understand, it did not matter. Anyway, a person as slow as Adju could automatically block a lot of peach blossoms. Little brother, Adju called Baizhan twice in a row. Don't you like the birthday present I gave you? Baizhan patted Alaska's head and finally saved it. I like it very much. He remembered that he really wanted to raise a large dog. Other than his grandfather, there was only Adju. He was clearly an adult, but he always had to be comforted by a child. It seemed that it had been like this since the past. He would always be the one who was healed. As long as little brother likes it. Adju finally let go of the Alaska. Then, she heaved a sigh of relief. The gift she gave was not so useless. The strength of the sled dog showed what it meant to struggle at death's door. It stuck out its tongue and panted. In its heart, tears had already flowed like a river. It had finally escaped from the clutches of the tiger. How touching. Baizhan's fair fingers caressed the big dog in his palm. His broken hair hung down and covered his eyes, making it impossible to see his expression clearly. In the snow and dust that filled the sky, only his low voice could be heard, Adju. Huh. Adju looked at Baizhan with her round eyes. Baizhan smiled lightly and instructed, go back to your parents and be obedient. Yes. Adju nodded heavily and smiled as well. The fog in front of her gradually dissipated. A gentle breeze blew past, sending waves of sweet fragrance of flowers. Baizhan squatted down with a smile on his slender and tall figure. He reached out and gently pushed away the soft black hair on Adju's forehead. Then, he leaned over and kissed Adju's forehead. He whispered a few words in her ear, containing all the feelings of a youth because of his deep affection for her. He said, Adju, don't forget me. Who asked you to be the school belle and more handsome than me? A certain man. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.